Such a shame, a season of sequels that the amazing show we got will not get a follow-up season.
Yeah, what a pity.
Real shame.
It will forever remain as an edge on history.
It will be forgotten in history. No one will remember the show in a year. All right.
Uh,
At
I don't know.
least I hope.
The
One can
moments will
hope, yeah.
pass, but the scars will remain.
I'm happy I didn't finish the show.
Yeah, lucky you.
Yeah, you're pretty lucky on that one. I think you're the luckiest out of all of us.
Welcome, Cheap Seat Critics Podcast Recap Season 10.
That is correct.
Boom. Got it.
We always get our numbers wrong, man, sometimes.
Been over a year. It's getting hard to keep track. We got
Hello, I'm a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
A character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks. And we have a very special guest with us today, actually. Everyone, please welcome the Fig, resident Blade Runner expert.
Clap, 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 clap.
I'm not sure if I'm really a resident expert, but it's a favorite movie of mine, and I've watched it many, many, many times. Several of the variations and versions that have been put out there.
Wonderful. Well, today, after I go over socials, we have about an hour to talk with the Fig and go over any questions we have about the movie to get a more, hopefully, cemented answer. In that case, socials, thank you for listening wherever you're listening from. If you'd like to see the visual side of things, opposed to the audio, if you're listening on audio, we're at Cheap Seat Critics over on YouTube, where we have our PNG tubers and the slideshow of whatever we're using to cover. We're also Cheap Seat Critics over on Instagram and TikTok. But if you change that end to CRITIX, that is our Twitter handle at Cheap Seat Critics. And we're also over on LetterBox if you're interested in the averaged out numbers and graphs of everything we've covered.
Wonderful.
So I
Now,
suppose not to waste
would
any
you want to pose a question?
yeah, not to waste any more time. I feel like it would be, do we start with the big question?
Since it's probably gonna take the
That-
most time, I'm gonna go with yes.
All right, the big question. Fig, the big question we have is
Yes.
only going off of the first movie. Do we
Okay.
are we including 2049 examples to add on or no?
Maybe as
No.
reference, maybe to
Mm.
kind of
Okay.
I get.
maybe to
You know what? Sure, we covered
solidify a
both. Why
point.
not?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is Deckard a replicant?
Well, that always seems to be the big like theory with movie buffs and all that. Uh, there are certain little um, telltale signs here and there that are scattered about. I don't know if Ridley Scott intentionally did it or whether it was just happened to be thrown out there. One of the key ones right off the bat is when you're at Deckard's apartment. They're on the piano. They're with the music score. It's just loaded with photographs of his ancestors, and the point. And there's also the scene where uh, Roy Batty talks to Leon, who tries to go to his apartment, and he goes, "Did you get your precious photos?" And he goes, "No, someone was there." And that seems to be the big thing, are photos. An interesting point too is Rachel, who doesn't know that she's a replicant, but she starts to suspect. She has a photo of her and her mother, and she shows it to Deckard, and he looks at it, and for about 2-3 seconds, and just about the last split second, you see the shadows move in the photo, and it's gone. I mean, you really got to pay attention. But yeah, that always seems to be the thing. Is Deckard a replicant? If he is, then why wasn't he as enhanced like Roy Batty and the rest of them? Uh, Why? And also, it was illegal for replicants to be on Earth. So, but then you know, go forward to the 2049. Ryan Gosling's character, he is a replicant that is employed by the police to hunt down other replicants. So, there's that kind of theory or thought that, hey, is this actually happening? So that always seems to be the big argument or discussion: is he really a replicant? And I don't believe he is, um, in that respect.
I I you brought up the photos. The one of the things, the key things in I think both stories is like how memories make the person, or like the
Mhm.
experiences make the person. So, but yeah, the photos is definitely I guess one of the considerations to make when you're always considering the argument, because it's as you say, it's pretty much the common one whenever discussing Blade Runner, whether he's a replicant or not.
Yeah, interesting during the little explanation with the photos and stuff. You didn't bring up the unicorn. What are your thoughts on what the unicorn signifies in
Oh,
relation
yeah,
to him
yeah.
being a replicant?
That was
Or
something, Mr. Sprinks had gotten me a book, The Making of Blade Runner, The Future Noir. And that was one of the questions that popped, when I was rewatching the final cut. There was a scene where he has Leon's photographs and he's just pondering, uh, I guess, life or whatever, looking at the photographs, and then the image of the unicorn. And it's like, okay, why is that in there? Why did Ridley Scott do that? And in the book, Ridley was like very enigmatic about it, saying, well, if you know, you know. I'm not going to explain it to you. And it's like, what the hell? So there is some conjecture by the author, um, that that brings about the case that he is a replicant because he's having a memory of a unicorn for whatever strange reason. And at the end of the movie, when he's taking Rachel out of his apartment and basically fleeing, Gaff was there, and he left one of his little origamis. And if you look, it was of a unicorn, and that leads to the question that Gaff or Bryant and all them knew that Deckard was a replicant because he was uh, getting rid of them, and um, the that somehow Gap had uh, knowledge or insight that he had seen uh, Deckard's memory engrams, uh, and knew about the unicorn. That's why he left it there at the end. There's that theory too.
Well, it's interesting you
yeah, that
pointed out that the unicorn was a memory. I don't think
Yeah,
any of us thought of it as a memory, but a dream when he was asleep on
yeah,
the piano.
yeah. Well, he wasn't really asleep. He was just kind of leaning against it, just kind of daydreaming or um, just kind of lost in thought.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because I've seen the other versions of the movie only once, and it's been a long time. Because most of the time I just rewatch the final cut version.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to remember. I think in one of the other versions that it is played off more of as a memory than a dream.
Hmm. Well, something else too I read in the book, and I haven't seen the original theatrical release where um, Harrison Ford does narration throughout the entire film. Which, when I first saw it, what I was about 19, 20 years old, I'm kind of sitting there going, what is going on? Is he going to do this through the entire film? And, it kind of added a little, uh, backstory. It added some substance to what was happening because this was filmed in a film noir sort of style that, from the 50s, that it was very kind of dark and gritty. There wasn't a lot of, uh, I guess, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Just superfluous fillers that we don't really need, but for some people they need. They need all the extras to kind of help understand what's going on with the movie. They kind of left it up to you, the viewer, to you know take it in and go, "Wow, what's really happening? Why is he doing that? What made him think that?" It's not like he had to explain himself why he was doing this or that every time he turned around. Um, but at the end of the movie, when Deckard and Rachel leave, they're supposedly driving down a country lane or something like that, and then it says in the book there was a unicorn off to the side of the road. And unfortunately, since I haven't seen it for 40 years, I seem to remember at the very end they're in his car, but he's flying through the clouds, and I didn't see. It's like, what do you mean country lane? So this might have been one of those versions where Ridley Scott, you know, remade it. Had the director's cut, the final cut, this cut, that cut, where he added and subtracted certain scenes and fillers in his movie. And but yeah, like I said, in the first one, I seem to remember that they were just flying through the clouds and they were looking at each other lovingly, and then it goes to the end, and then you get the title cut, and
Mm.
that's
I think that would have been too. I mean, having seen the final cut, I think that's too much of like going off into the sunset kind of feeling for
yeah,
noir.
yeah.
So that kind of makes sense why he would edit that one out.
Hmm.
Okay, does that sway anyone's original thoughts as to Deckard being a replicant or not?
Uh, no, I'm still on the human side. My biggest thing for human side is because how feeble he is. Because we bring
Hmm.
up the comparison of 2049 with Joe, and he's a replicant hunting replicants. He's also very replicant. He's got the super strength, the
Yes,
numbness to pain. Deckard
he's
doesn't
been
have any of that.
enhanced. Yeah, yeah.
Deckard would be a Nexus 5 or earlier because the Nexus 6s weren't around when he was originally on the job, unless that was all fraudulent in his mind, or the implants or whatever, if we're going with the replicant route, I suppose.
Yeah. And
But
also what his lifespan. I mean,
yeah,
the typical lifespan of a replicant was 3 to 4 years, and that was it. So if he'd been doing his job for we don't know really how long, but obviously for a number of years before he finally left the police department. And this is the thing too. When he left the police department hunting, replicants as a Blade Runner, why wasn't he retired? So, boom, there you go. Even if he was a Nexus 4 or 5, he would have been retired immediately as soon as he tried to leave.
Yeah, they don't really. We know they in 2049 we get a distinctive like era of time when they removed the lifespan cap on replicants.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's after Deckard's time.
Yeah.
and we know in the first one that the Nexus 6 models have been around for at least 4 years because Roy Batty's 4 years old.
Yeah.
So they would presumably, if Deckard was a replicant, retire him to upgrade with a Gen or a Nexus 6 model to keep up with the generations to chase down.
Mm.
You wouldn't send something old to chase down something new. You want to keep them up to date, right?
So they would have just downloaded his memories as a Nexus 5 and uploaded them as a Nexus 6. So he could have been theoretically a Nexus 6, but not enhanced. But again, yeah, if he was, why wasn't he enhanced?
I guess Sprinks, you've been the only one that's been pro replicant, so I guess
Yes.
you got anything to pose
I was
to
thinking
Fig?
Yeah.
Rachel was a one of a kind replicant on her own. She was a
Hmm.
somewhat an experiment that Tyrell said. I think there's a possibility that could be the same for Deckard of being this one of kind replicant test that I think is the prolonged life before giving it to in 2049 the beginning crawl date that they stated where the 4-year time span was like cut, but that was for general replicants of like any kind. I think Deckard was the first to be tested with that as a special, and I think it's in his. I you guys tried me got me to like they're not androids. They're biologically made beings, and
Mhm.
it was the fact that he's so blend in with human. That's his big thing. He's blending in with humans to be a human. He's not working for Tyrell. He's not a hired assistant. He's not walking around. So I think just in his mind, he is as human as possibly can be. So when it comes to like being exhausted or tired, that is just something that he knows of to do, to be exhausted and tired in a situation. We never really see him like try not to, like run out of breath. Like if he just stood up or like I think that's just so ingrained in him of what he is that it could be, which is the whole point of is he or isn't he, because that's a very human thing to just be exhausted. But it also could just be the replicant design of him to do such an act afterwards. And
What
one of the
bring up
scenes that
the
stands
point of
out
what's the point of that though? Why would they
I
do
to
that?
blend him
uh,
in,
yeah,
to make him not stand
my
out or immediately
kind
be
of
like, you're not human. Um, I think a scene that really stands out is the fight with Roy Batty, and he goes to the roof, and there's a good like 10 seconds of him just lying down in the rain on the roof, out of breath. That could have easily
kind of
just
explain.
cut back to Roy Batty running up the stairs or something to get to the rooftop.
I don't see how you could attribute him being exhausted as in he's not human. He's a replicant thinking he's human, so he's exhausted instead of just
Well,
being an exhausted human.
so I'll play a bit of devil's advocate because I think what I didn't agree with the first half, but I think I agree with the second half that Springs was saying, which was there I think there is a possibility that if he is a replicant, they could have intentionally designed him to be human, which means he does get exhaustion, among other things, because he's explicitly on Earth, which is where replicants are banned, so it would help blend him in to the society at large. Because if you have someone who's very obviously a replicant working on the police force when they're illegal or banned, that's not a good thing. It's going to attract unwanted attention.
Which would go immediately back to Tyrell and be a big uproar and situation.
What
There'd be a
reason?
lot of
I
questions.
think
How many
I was
are still here? And
think I was with you for a little bit there because I was kind of thinking of 2049, where they now have Joe on the force as a replicant, and it's kind of not as taboo as it was in the
This
first
is
movie.
all 2049 is
Well, no,
also after all the like uprising riots too.
yeah, yeah,
So
but I'm a little less now, but because I was like, well, that would kind of make sense if they had a successful experiment, and it didn't. But they didn't really have a successful experiment with Deckard then because he disappeared and left, and and he's basically, if he's a replicant, he's out, and he has a separate Rachel with him. So that would actually be less of a reason to have more replicants on the force if, hey, we had a guy who was, doing this and then he just disappeared. We probably should just have humans. We probably shouldn't have other replicants on the force because
I
it
think
doesn't
that
seem
would
to
have
end very
gone.
well.
I think that would have gone through if Tyrell didn't die, because it could have been
Yeah,
a secret that
possibly.
only Tyrell knew, and he died with it.
Why would they have this replicant posing as human and not knowing be a Blade Runner instead of just like a sushi shop owner or something? Why would they put this test replicant, a test prolonged life, and if he passes as human, in such a dangerous profession to where he couldn't even be a fully tested successful experiment?
I think that's the absolute beauty of it, of the test for this subject zero of the prolonged life of a replicant, is to the best way for a replicant to believe to be human as much as possible is put it in an environment where it does nothing but interact with replicants. If it was just bog standard, sushi chef, as you said, that had like very no interaction because replicants aren't allowed on Earth, then it's the only test for it is life, if that is the test that Tyrell is doing on Deckard. If it's everything else of like questioning belief, uh, that go along, are you or aren't you, which is what's happening with Rachel in the film, then being in an environment with replicants and against replicants is helpful to see, is he going to turn? does this work on the mind of this type of replicant of Deckard? If I'm believing he is one, is he going to snap? Is he going to change? Do they have to do a new version of such? How long can it go? So it's just another whole test onto Deckard.
There's some believability in that, but I think it just seems like, okay, if you were going to have a replicant, as we see in 2049, and granted, this is, we got like 30, almost 40 years in between these two movies, so who knows if how connected, or how close they would be
Okay.
if they were, you know like a year apart or something. But it seems like it works out better for Kay or Joe or whatever by being a replicant who knows he's a replicant and having all the abilities of a replicant, chasing down other replicants, than any of the humans that we technically see in the first film, even though we only really see one for these, Nexus 6 series and everything. So, uh, like, devil's advocate, there's is a possibility, because I feel like him thinking he's human and acting human is a good cover for it. But I don't know if I would put that guy in the same position of having to hunt down other replicants with all those inert weaknesses. It seems a little stretchy.
I do
Yeah,
agree. It's
it could,
definitely stretchy.
because the Nexus 6 replicants were enhanced slave labor
Hmm.
for dealing with the harsh environments of off-world. Um,
And Roy Batty was a
as
soldier too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was
yeah,
a
he was
military.
he was the leader of their group. Um, Zora, the uh, murder kick squad. Uh, Leon, kind of the uh, heavy arms, heavy, the brawn, no brains, and Pris, a basic pleasure model, just to keep everyone happy. But yeah, again, enhanced with physical and mental abilities to if they get into uh, hostile situations, be able to get out of them. Uh, you know, uh, to basically think quick on their feet and
Mhm.
do whatever necessary to survive.
There is something where, and and again, maybe playing into the whole thing of, he's a replicant, isn't he? We never see
Mhm,
Deckard kind of before the start of the movie. We never see this history of him being really, really good, and maybe he's just got put online and he's just immediately there, and it's all
mhm.
just a cover for what a just play off that a little bit. Because and I
One
think that was a critique that writer had, that we never see technically his
A younger side.
him a younger, or him this supposed magic Blade Runner who could get anything.
Mhm.
You know.
Well,
Yeah.
hence the fact that it's film noir.
Yeah, yeah.
You're introduced to these characters. There's a situation, a problem that needs to be resolved, and boom, in comes you know the protagonist or uh, anti-protagonist, if you choose, to resolve it all. And at you see it that, is he really that likable? Um, is he really relatable? Do you look at him and go, wow, he's just kind of a hard person that has to do a hard job and he gets it done. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
as when he goes in to see Bryant, Bryant says, "No, I need you on this. This is a real bad one." And he goes, "Hey, I was fast when I walked in. I'm faster now walking out." He goes, and he holds him. He goes, you walk out that door. You're little people." Basically, uh, he pretty much
Dropping him.
blackmails him, saying, "I'll make your life a living hell. I'll arrest you or harass you every chance I get until you get this job done." Yeah.
Well, I think we're just gonna go kind of again back and forth across this tennis court of is he or isn't
Yeah.
he?
Hmm.
Like I
Because
said,
there's no
like I said,
exact answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I said in the
You,
video, uh, Ridley Scott says he's a replicant. Harrison Ford says he isn't. Usually I go with the director, but I don't know. It's very hard for me to see it in
Yeah,
the end.
there's not enough confirming that he is a
Yeah,
replicant
it
for me to
it
lean that way, you know?
And there's not enough
it
for me to lean the
leaves
other.
yeah, it kind of leaves a lot to interpretation and imagination. Is he or isn't he? Here are the arguments for, here are the arguments against. You make up your own mind. That I
Mm,
think that's one of the uh, one of the things that Ridley, wanted out of this. Is like having people talk about this, and they still are. What 40 uh,
Yeah,
over 40 years, they're still discussing is he or isn't he. So yeah, so he did his job well.
good. Well, with that being that was a good half hour on one question, let's go to another.
Yeah. So, Fig, I would like to know your thoughts on how Deckard conducted his investigation. During our coverage, I kind of did not like that we got a little segment of him hunting down Zora, and then the rest of the investigation was handed to him. He didn't really do any more investigating.
Yeah. Well, he was, basically tracking down what are, leads from the photographs. Um, that was kind of pretty cool back then to watch this as he used the machine, the vid cam, and it was able to go pretty much into a photograph and extrapolate and enhance uh, areas of the photograph and pull up images that were not easily seen. So that was a pretty cool effect that they were able to do in the movie, and uh, that he was able to uh, get the picture of Zora, and then he basically used all the other information, all the other evidence he had, the little snake scale, uh, and the glitter. Um, or yeah, that was on her dress off her body and tracked her down to Kathy Lewis's bar where she was performing, and then he was, and the fact that he, kind of played himself off as a inspector to, put her at ease so he could, retire her, but she knew what was going on because it's like she wasn't stupid, and uh, regardless, she probably figured that he was a cop of some sort, maybe not a Blade Runner, but yeah, that was um, all that investigative work, and then of course Leon, he uh, right after that, and then it was after that he's tracked down uh, the people that were uh, responsible for creating nexuses, and the fact that Rachel had, you know, come into his life, and that kind of got him, uh, I guess, confused or got him sidetracked.
All right. Any other questions?
Right, or did you come up with any of the ones you lost in your notes?
unfortunately, no. um, yeah. I guess I got a basic one. Uh, what's your favorite scene in the movie, or if that's changed at all? I'm wondering for you, Mr. Fig.
Oh gosh, um, favorite scene. There were some good moments. I would say probably the final scene where um, he's at JF Sebastian's apartment building, and he's hunting down, uh, trying to find you know uh, Chris and Roy Batty, the last two replicants, and um, the subsequent, trying, fighting Roy, and then basically fleeing for his life, and at the very end when Roy sees that he's just, about to fall off the edge of the building, he saves him, and then let then his final death scene dialogue about I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. So that was always a favorite scene of mine.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same. When I first watched the movie, I think that scene is what made me come back to it more than once because
Mhm.
I'm in a group. That scene was very powerful to me the first time through. So
Good. I'll go with another question. That I think we all agreed as to an answer, but Fig, at the very beginning of the movie, when it's overlooking L.A.,
Mhm.
it cuts to an eyeball looking
Yeah,
at the stacks. Whose eyeball is that?
that's Holden's. That's the other Blade Runner. Um, he's standing there in Terrell's office, smoking that weird cigarette, and you see the reflection of the city, the fiery smokestacks and all that, and kind of the landscape of mechanized mechanization of buildings, and uh, noticing that there's no greenery, no trees, no grass, nothing, just uh,
overbearing industry.
yeah, pretty much. And then it cuts to him uh, turning around. Here comes Leon, and he starts to, interrogate, question him to find out if he is a replicant.
Gotcha. I believe in our coverage we believe that it was Leon's eye, but good to know an actual answer behind that one.
No, I believe it was Holden because he's standing there looking out the window, waiting for Leon to arrive.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that fits.
that fits.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's still in the vein of we all thought it was Leon because he's the one that's getting the void comp test in the following
Mhm.
scene. But yeah, it still works if it's Holden's as well. So
Yeah.
Sinister, do you have a question at all?
Mm, no, I I mean, probably mine would have been what was your favorite scene, but Ryder already asked that. So
sorry.
Yeah.
no, you're fine.
Asked and answered.
Yeah.
Well, then to go off the opposite of that, Fig, being even though it's one of your favorite movies of all time, what is your least favorite scene?
Oh,
Asking the tough questions.
yeah. I probably the scene where Deckard is in his apartment and he's looking at the photographs and he's just kind of in that state of reverie, just whether he's imagining, daydream, whatever, and then the unicorn is brought in because back then when I watched it, I'm going and I was with a couple of friends of mine. We all went to go see this, and I'm sitting there going, "What the hell is with the unicorn?"
It is
And
very abrupt.
yeah, I mean, it just boom pops in there, and it's like, okay, what is going on? And then they go back to where he's sitting there, and then he takes up the photograph, and and I'm like, okay, what what was that about? So yeah, that's probably not one of my favorite scenes because it's just like, why did they throw that in? But then again, after reading some of the highlights of the book here, it kind of gives some answer, but it's still like I still don't understand why. But you know what? That's why those guys made the money. That's why they got to make the films, and I got to watch them.
Gotcha.
I actually have a question about the void comp test because I had
Mm,
plenty of
yeah.
those while we covered it.
Oh, that's
Is
true.
it
Yeah.
is it to find out what a replicant is or who is a replicant? Is it
Um,
figuring out based on empathy or emotions? Broad broad stroke emotions for the
well,
testing.
it's like a lie detector test. It focuses on eye dilation, and uh, that's why they told him you have to sit still and look straight ahead. And he, you know, and, and Leon kind of says, "Do you make these questions up, Mr. Holden? What?" It's like he goes to answer your query. No, these questions are given to me. It's meant to measure um, your response, your emotional response to these tests. And that's when he says, in single, in single words, describe your feelings about your mother. And Leon knew, oh God, I did, I don't have any photographs or any memory engrams of a mother figure. They're going to find out. So they goes, my mother. Let me tell you about my mother. And then boom, 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 he just blows them away. Um, so yeah, they use that, and it's the same thing when Deckard was doing it on Rachel. He, matter of factly says, "Okay, you find this, this and that," and she just, boom, she just answers as cold and efficiently as possible. And yeah, they can find out within about, as he says, about 20 to 30 questions cross reference. They can, determine if a person's a replicant or not. But with Rachel, it was over 100. And even then, Deckard still really wasn't sure if, you know, she was a replicant until he confronted Tyrell. And that's when he goes, memories. You're talking about memories. Because they realized that the earlier versions, the Nexus programs, they became unstable. They weren't as efficient. So then they started to give them memories to, I guess, keep them focused, keep them, stable and controlled uh, as long as they have those. Because basically, the Nexus, they were meant as nothing more than slave labor.
Mhm.
And one of the issues I had with the Void contest was I don't even know if, as cool as it is, I don't think it's necessary because they could do some sort of neural scan to get actual visible response other than just eye dilation because that could be flawed in some fashion. Like the Rachel one took over 100. Somebody
Hmm.
not as skilled as Deckard could have passed her,
Yeah.
and so it's not foolproof. But I feel like a scanning of the brain can, because they've got to be passing as human physically, because you could just scan for anything and then it's like, okay, they're replicant.
Yeah.
Got to be
Well,
neural. So
yeah.
you could do a neural scan, I would imagine, and see what parts of the brain react to the questions, which would be more
It,
definitive than just eye
yeah,
dilations.
that would have been possible, but they chose to go another route. Also, in 2049, they also um, kind of like put a tag on replicants that was in the you pull down the eyelid, boom, and you'd see the little tattoo identification mark that was definitive that, oh yeah, they're a replicant. So if you weren't sure, there it was. But in
Yeah,
the first one,
that
yeah,
was
Did
because
they
they
they,
introduced
ever?
with the snake scale that you can, at a molecular level, tag things,
yeah,
and that seemed like a very definitive way to figure out what a replicant is.
Did they ever
yeah.
state what Nexus model started with the tattooing of that?
No, we
In
didn't really get much
2020,
on
no,
anything
I would,
before
no.
I would,
6.
I would presume in logical world building, it would have started after the rebellions, the blackouts.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Um,
Joe was a Nexus 9, right?
Yeah, he's about
Okay.
three.
But
Yeah, three
I think it was an
after.
8, wasn't he?
What? Either way, he was after the 6. He wasn't a
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
A later model.
Nexus
Yeah.
aids with open-minded lifespans.
Mm.
So that was the
Yeah.
start of the lifespan publicly.
then whenever the blackouts happened, I think is that then when they would have started tagging replicants properly
'Cause there's
because of
no,
the
yeah,
yeah.
no record, or very few. The other thing I will say, I think, in defense of the Voight comp test, um, is probably, obviously legality is a kind of a big factor, I think, for a lot of the inner workings of Blade Runner, because the Nexus 6 are technically illegal on Earth, and
Hmm.
most replicants are in general, but especially the Nexus 6 were the first ones that were actually sent off world specifically. Um, so there was probably, by the fact that they weren't technically needing to be on world, they didn't really have to do any of the normal, how you say, barcoding or anything, because they were never meant to be actually on the planet
Yeah.
for specific legal reasons. So, and we know that the Voight comp is not as effective with the Nexus 6 just because of their heightened abilities and heightened intelligence. And
Hmm.
with Rachel, it takes over
Well,
about 100 questions for her.
well,
But the
as
Voight, but the Voight comp might have been, they could have done a brain scan or the what
Hmm.
Crimson said of the, but probably the Voight comp was both the one that worked most often, but was also probably the cheapest thing that you could reproduce and have it be a slightly professional and great for.
Available. Yeah.
Yeah, because we also see an economic kind of uh, downturn with especially the police. It seems like there's not a huge let's say
Unlimited budget.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was the void comp probably wasn't not necessarily the best answer overall, but probably the
Hmm.
best for a public service officer, to be able to use somewhat effectively.
Hmm. But then again, also as Tyrell mentioned to Deckard, um, the Nexus, their motto or a slogan or a selling point was
Mm.
more human than a human.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh wow. So they were creating a better human, but with a
Mm.
limited lifespan because they knew if they gave them memories and all that, find an unlimited lifespan, maybe over time they would go, you know what, we're better than you, so why should you be in charge? And again, the riots that happened in the sequel.
Mhm.
Frank, so how much time we have left for with Fig?
We have about 16 minutes left of the said
Okay.
hour with Fig. I do have
Hmm.
one more question of my own. So, Fig, something that came up
Hmm.
in the recording, what we did for Blade Runner, that I was adamant against. JF takes Roy Batty to Tyrell's building and
Mm.
gets his attention over the intercom by giving him chess moves because he has a chessboard at his apartment, much like Tyrell at his own, which
Yes.
gave me the implication that they've been playing chess together over the same game, but being that they're two boards, they do it remotely. And I figured that was the case of Sebastian calling Tyrell from his own place and then playing together. Is it not out of concern or odd to Tyrell that in the middle of the night he gets an intercom about a chess move from Sebastian, who's currently at his building, opposed to a normal phone call that he would get at his apartment?
Well,
Yeah. Well, that's he's Tyrell is getting ready to go to bed. He's dictating notes of what needs to be done, and then he gets the call from JF. Um, come up and see him, and he gives him the new chess move, and it's like, no, 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 that can't be right. And he goes over because obviously Tyrell has so much going on, and he does this kind of as diversion, and he finds that J.F. Sebastian is quite brilliant in his own regards of what is it, genetic modification, is
yeah.
what his big thing is with the Nexus 6 line. Um, because he says to Roy, he goes, "You're Nexus 6. There's a little of me in you," because he helped, create it. And he's just he probably never really gets to see the end product or interact with it. He just does his little part. Like James Hong's character Chu is doing the eyes. He goes, "I do your eyes," and but if you could see with my eye, if you could see with your eyes what I've seen with mine, again, that thing that you humans have no idea what the replicants have been through or done or seen. Um, so JF is just, enamored with them. And Pris, it's like, you're in Nexus 6. It's like he's never actually seen or interacted with them. So he's really, you know, just fascinated and really, excited about it. So then he suggests, going to Tyrell to see what they could do about, extending their lifespan. And with the chess game, yeah, Tyrell considers JF not really maybe an equal, but maybe a diversion for himself. And as JF even said, I've only beaten him once. So, which goes to attest that Tyrell is just an incredibly brilliant person. Uh, so going there, yeah, Tyrell should have. That's why he says, "What's on your mind, Sebastian?" And then he gives him the checkmate. He goes, maybe you should come up and we'll talk. So obviously Tyrell was intrigued that Sebastian, uh, instead of just during normal hours or maybe remotely, maybe sending a text or a message saying, "Okay, this move." He actually called him because uh, he probably never did that. He probably didn't actually call him, but maybe sent a message, via email or text or something, and said, "Hey, here's my next move," and then he would respond and such. And now he actually did it personally. That intrigued Tyrell, and he goes, "She should come up." And then that's when, oh, geez, there's Roy. What's happening? And then you can see the concerned look, the angst on Sebastian's face. It's like, what have I done? What's going on? When Roy starts to get a little kind of in Tyrell's face, and then ultimately kills him, and then unfortunately also kills JF. Why? Why he killed JF? I don't know. That was kind of the saddest part of that movie.
Okay. So you're saying that Tyrell's curiosity got over his concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of boiled down to what we said, I think. When we originally argued over this, there was nothing for me definitively that this wasn't a normal occurrence. They play chess games both in person and remotely. And, 'cause, I mean, it's played off in the scene that, like, JF Sebastian has had a bout of inspiration, and then Tyrell wants to, kind of spend time, kind of bask in that while he's inspired. Because, as you
Yeah.
say, JF was brilliant, and
hmm
so he wants to obviously talk to him when he's inspired.
Yeah. To see what new thing JF may have for the next line of Nexus.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are there any other questions for the Fig?
I have a couple reviews that strangers wrote. If there's no question,
Oh,
that I'll post.
wonderful. Get
Yeah.
feedback on those.
Strangers?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we have a segment in the recap, Critics on Critics, where
hmm
we pull reviews from Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, whatever it may be,
hmm
and we comment on what they say. So I'll bring up this one on the first Blade Runner by
Uh,
Lazy Nuts on IMDb.
Great. This is gonna be a great start.
Yes, the title of their review: "Warning: You can't get a refund on your time." Their comment stating, "I rented this movie based on the high reviews here on IMDb. What a disaster. I never write reviews, but had to give some warning. Harrison Ford is the greatest Blade Runner ever, yet the only detective work he does in the whole movie is analyze a photo, which led him to the first replicant. The second replicant attacked him, and he was given the location of the last two because they were at the apartment of the scientist they murdered. Wow.
hmm
It
Already
was
this comment.
all
Sorry, finish up.
If that's all it takes to be a Blade Runner, then sign me up. Even the action scenes were drawn out and way too long, killing any kind of flow. I'm trying to figure out why this movie rates so high, but I'm stumped. Horrible film, bad, bad, bad."
Well, all right. They're already wrong. There's literally a scene where Deckard is in an apartment with Gaff searching for clues. So
Where he finds
there's
the
clearly
scale.
more investigating than what's stated.
Crimson, what was
Yeah,
the rating score on this review?
oh, I did forget to mention that. 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Wow.
Uh,
Well,
Bad, bad, bad.
I mean, they're like any movie, anything, it's subjective. It's depending on how well it was received, how much it made you think, how much it made you feel. And if it was something that um, made you, uh, entertained you and made you, stop and think, like going to see a play. In a way, you want to be entertained, but you want to think about what you're seeing. You want to be engaged. You want to kind of feel what's happening, and also the fact that this was a based on 1950s film noir. Maybe that's something that this person, Lazy Nuts, that it just wasn't their genre. Maybe it's just something that was um, uh, out of their understanding or realm, or just something that they didn't they just didn't care for. So, like I said, it's all subjective.
I commend Lazy Nuts for sitting through the entirety of the film and giving it a 1.
Yeah, yeah.
That's still feels very low for someone. I mean,
Oh yeah.
a 1 is the lowest, right? There's no 0
Hmm.
on IMDb
Yeah,
rating.
Yeah, once the lowest.
Uh,
Mm.
so being the fact that I didn't even walk out or stop being a rental of them renting it, and they did finish the whole thing.
Yeah,
I think the
So
1's a
I
little
have,
more out of rage and
yeah,
confusion than actual critique.
yeah.
I have one more Blade Runner and one 2049 one.
Okay.
This is one oh this is also IMDb, 1 out of 10, from R. Wingase. Title of the review: Beyond Boring. This is one of the worst movies ever made. I can't believe this movie has a cult following. I just, I just about what the bleh. I'm sorry. I like just about any movie. I even get enjoyment from the straight to DVD American Pie movies and other B or C rated movies. However, this movie is just awful to watch. I stopped
Mm.
watching it 3 times and kept forcing myself to go back and try to finish, thinking it will eventually get better. And while watching it, I had it on my DVD player on times 2 speed because it was so boring and slow. Avoid this movie unless you want to fall asleep.
Mm.
Jesus Christ.
Comparing
Wow.
it to a direct to DVD American
Yeah.
American
And
Pie film is wild.
yeah, that's like saying, okay, why is there a cult following for VH1? Um, no, what's that Weird Al Yankovic
UHF.
UHF.
UHF? Thank you. Dumb and Dumber. Why is there a cult following for Pee Wee Herman? Come on. It's I don't really consider it a cult following. I consider it just fans of, like I said, film noir, of a gritty background, gritty storyline that really, you think about it, are there really any heroes in this film? Maybe at the very end when Deckard and Rachel run away, but then again, you're kind of left with the question: how far did they get? Was Gaff, right behind, waiting for them at the bottom of the elevator? Was he waiting to off them both? Yeah. I mean, you're still left with questions, and that don't have any answers. So it left a lot to a person's imagination and their own subjective reasoning. And some of these people were just, I guess, they just weren't entertained enough, or they never really engaged with the characters or the storyline. And again, that it's subjective. It just depends on the person.
Yeah, maybe
Interesting
just
to think.
film noir
Interesting
isn't
to think.
their style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting to think that like there's a level of like entertainment that they need to have in order to, I guess, engage with the material properly.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah.
All right.
Well,
And the
it's
last,
like watching any of the Agatha Christie movies. It's like, uh, unless you're engaged with it's like, okay, who done it? Who actually did it? And you're sitting there on the edge of your seat trying to figure out who actually committed the murder. And then at the end, when they reveal, you're kind of like, what? Really? okay, well, I guess
One
that
out
would
of
be
10.
yeah. Some people's response is that, but then again, you look at it and go, wow, that was almost diabolical. That you know, Murder on the Orient Express. All the people involved were all somehow connected to this little girl's kidnapping and subsequent murder. How they all
Spoilers for Murder on
Yeah,
banded
the
sorry,
Orient.
together,
spoilers, but
found
yes.
that person. Yeah, found that person, and then did the deed. And it's all revealed at the end. You're like, wow, how? And you're sometimes it kind of blows you away. Other times you're like, oh, come on. But yeah,
And the last one from Blade Runner 2049 on Letterbox from Mitch. Half star, which would be equivalent to 1 out of 10.
wow.
Absolutely everything that could be done wrong was done wrong. And this insult of a film wastes more time than a State of a Union address. Hot garbage, start to finish, and a 2+ hour insult to the original.
Oh, so they just didn't like
The
Oh,
the
ins.
sequel. Okay, there we go.
Okay,
You know,
so they.
I'm a little disappointed because normally even people that don't like the sequel will at least admit that visually I think it's an upgrade. So that's interesting that they didn't even
Mhm,
like the visuals.
mhm,
or at least commented on them.
Or at least comment on them.
Well, they said
yeah.
absolutely everything that could be done wrong was done wrong. So I guess
Yeah.
that would mean the visuals
I
too.
guess yeah, that would be.
Yeah, or
uh,
maybe the storyline or
Mm.
what have you. Um,
what a disappointing take with no substance.
mhm,
That's the
yeah,
internet for you.
mhm,
Pretty much. Uh,
yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's kind of what we've become. Is hey, I can get on a social media platform fairly anonymously, and then make my opinions known to everyone, and you can take them or leave them. But you better not, chastise me too much or criticize me too much because hey, it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. So if and it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm responding to your negative criticism of a movie that I thought was actually, fairly decent. Um, it was long overdue, but it had all the right elements in it. But also, it kind of puts it on the responder that hey, you too can get on the social media saying hey, this is what I found enjoyable about that film. That's why I engaged with it. Other people that have negative comments, well, that's your opinion.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, at
it,
least compared to what was it, Lazy Nuts and
Lazy nuts.
R Whale Gale Gay something.
Hmm.
Arwen. Arwen
Um,
Gacy.
Arwen Grace.
yeah,
Yeah,
Mitch
Grace.
actually seemed to like the first film.
So
Yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
yeah. It's it's comments like that that I guess it makes me appreciate our podcast a little bit more. Where we spend hours talking about paint drying on a wall.
We could do that.
It depends on the paint.
Hmm.
yeah.
What's the
Like a blue
texture on
paint
it?
or
Yeah.
A little
something.
too thin of a paint for my liking, really.
Yeah, I see a different shade over here. Why does this look wet and shiny? This looks matte. It's like because it's drying.
Well, much like paint, after time
Why eggshell white?
it does dry and come to its finished state. Much like this
In
hour we've had
time.
with Fig.
Yeah.
Uh, does anyone have any last things for Fig before he dips
Uh,
out?
Thanks for your input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for
You're
coming on.
welcome. Thanks for having me on. One final note here. One of the other things when I first saw this movie over 20 years ago, uh, no, 40 years ago, um, the soundtrack, Vangelis was phenomenal in his score of the movie. Rachel's uh, love theme, um, Zora's uh, execution or retirement, and the final cut. Just the the wide range he had with Rachel's love theme that employing um, synthesizers and a saxophone. Um, the kind of the futuristic uh, score that he used, and then the final ending cut that was just very dramatic. That with a symphony with the kettle drums, of boom, 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 that it just was very powerful. That was one of the other selling points that I enjoyed very much about this movie was that score. And
Yeah, music definitely very much like aesthetically like
yeah,
plays into the noir theme of the world, and it's wonderful. I
yeah,
agree with that.
Not just the noir, but the cybernet, the futuristic,
Oh yeah,
cyber
the crazy
stylized
yeah,
of
cyberpunk.
difference.
Yeah.
yeah. You hear right here that
Hmm.
Well, Fig, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Appreciate you being here. Hopefully, we'll have you on in the
Hmm.
future for some other event of we're covering.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I sign off with that.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So I missed National Treasure 2. Uh,
You did.
I did,
Unfortunately,
unfortunately.
You're on vacation.
So yeah. So let me get my ratings out because I actually was set up to record with you guys, but again, life's been quite hectic for me for the past few weeks. So let me get my ratings. My objective for National Treasure 2 was 6.5. No, it was 6.0. And then my subjective was 7.
For the second one?
Yes.
okay.
Uh,
So
I,
you enjoyed them both equally.
I enjoyed them both equally, but I think the first one is stronger on the objective side.
Apologies for those over on YouTube. The scorings are off.
Oh, scoring. Well,
Yes.
just 'cause we'd have NAs for you, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's NAs in our Discord chat, but I think, Brinks, that's why you asked me for my.
The Book of Secrets
Yeah.
has you as 2 6s.
Okay.
So the
Sorry.
subjective is a 7.
My bad. I went back to look at my notes to make sure, and I forgot that you do that side of thing.
Yes.
That's on me.
But the Edge of History is a NA because writer
Okay.
didn't finish it.
I did not finish the show, but I did watch
Which
the
is a
first
rating
3
in
episodes.
itself.
So, if you want to talk about the first 3 episodes, I could at all.
Oh,
Got
that
any
was like
questions for me?
Question,
no.
not directly correlated show, but if you had to give a rating for the first 3 episodes in isolation, what would you give it?
I'm hovering at about for the first 3 episodes.
Yeah,
I'm hovering at about between a 2 and a 3 right now. I don't have a solid number though.
Of
okay,
objective or
that's fair enough.
subjective?
That's sorry. Let me get it. Objective, it's probably hovering between a 2 and a 3. Subjective, um, maybe a 4. I don't hate the characters. I just waiting for them to grab me a little bit more.
They won't. Don't worry.
They could.
Yeah, they could,
They
but
could.
they won't.
They could, but they won't.
It certainly is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I
The
they
same
can't
think
screw it
possibility
up
that I
7
could
more
be on
episodes.
the alien right now, and you guys would never know.
Well, yes. Before we go any deeper into Edge of History, I
Indeed.
like to come out because I feel Crimson's going to attack me because that's how the end
Ah,
of the recording went. Was
I called you
very
out.
like he's going to attack me. So I like to bring up something about the show and writer apologies that you didn't get this far in it, but there's a part I didn't write down what episode it was in,
All right. Already
but
failed.
there's a part where Ross is in the FBI talking to Ethan, and Ethan is asking her questions. And we talked about this, and essentially, you and I had a back and forth on whether or not she gave anything away. And Ethan was like going off of a list of characters trying to find answer, and then she wasn't giving off such a thing. So I went back and tried getting screenshots on said scene. For being a Disney Plus show, getting screenshots is a singular black image. You cannot take screenshots of something off of a streaming service. However, you can put on subtitles and the screenshots pick up the subtitles. So I have in order the dialogue between Ethan and Agent Ross. And it goes, Ethan asking, "It was Billy Pierce, wasn't it?" And Ross's response is, "Actually, it wasn't Billy Pierce." Ethan then responds with, "Then who?" And Ross's answer is, "Sorry, I can't divulge details on an ongoing investigation." Where she previously just gave the answer that it wasn't Billy Pierce.
As I said, I wanted them in the first 2 episodes, I believe I said I wanted an obituary for dialogue.
Now, to me, I continued forth with viewing Agent Ross, as Sinister put it, where this was not a problem because there was no list and she was doing her job correctly, so I saw the rest as such. Going back with this information, I see it as I can't take anything out of her mouth seriously, whether she is being serious about being an FBI agent or she's just going with something written by some maybe below bar writer.
Well, both of those things are accurate, but
Yeah,
none
because
of
of
it
that,
has to
I
do with
think
anything.
Agent Ross's, I'll try to keep it spoiler free for Ryder here, but Agent Ross, for the continuation of the show, has a lower emotional connection or hit point of following of what happens. It's certainly lessened because of that, and this is episode. This conversation between her and Ethan is at least episode 6 at the earliest, because of the events of 7 and 8, uh, and 9 and 10. Yes.
Sounds right.
Okay. Definitely not 9 and 10. 7 and 8. It could be in either one of those, but I believe 6 or earlier. Because of this, everything else after Ross, I think, is tampered with and changed. One could say it's even beforehand, because this is just in line with her character. Writer, what you do know is was it Tasha and, you know what?
Yes.
It's such a great show, I forget everyone's names. Uh, Tasha and
Jess.
Jess, thank you. When they went into the FBI and were trying to explain that Oren was kidnapped, and then they had to backpedal and get out of there.
Yeah,
Ross was kind of already in a funk because it was her first day in a new place, not necessarily her first day as an FBI agent, as Crimson and Sinister informed me later on in the recording. But if it's from like that point forward of her just being this back and forth flip floppy character, wish wash of the FBI agent who is kind of taking over the role of Sadusky in the show, of being around during the whole treasure hunting situation. Overall, this lowers my entire objective scale by a whole point to 5.5.
Okay, that brings up a question. um, why? Like that goes under writing. And
It,
we've discussed with your scale, writing takes no more than 2 points off your scale. So are you implying that it was not already taking away 2 points from writing on this?
I'm implying it's more than writing.
But it is writing what you just described.
Writing is a part of it. It also goes into acting. If being a wish-wash character, you can't fully go on the fact of her acting being a serious FBI agent the entirety of the time, being on the investigation that she's on, or the case that she's continuing telling Hendrix, "I'm still working on this." If it's
She's acting off the writing though. It's not the actor's choice of what was stated. They're going off of the script.
then that falls
She
onto
didn't act
writer. No,
poorly.
that
She
falls onto
acted off the
writer.
words.
That falls onto writer of saying everything is connected to the writing. If you're saying that the writing given affects the acting, it does affect the display of acting of what's happening, but the fact of the writing is very wish-wash, and you can't, as I just said, can't tell of the serious tones of her actually doing something versus the whole I I'm silly kind of FBI agent for a comedic side to pass on to more serious, or however the pacing of tone is in the show. Then the acting that's displayed has to be a constant guess, 50-50. Is she acting serious, is she acting silly, what point right now off of context is being what? And because of that, I think that also affects her acting as well, because I don't see her really go into like this silly mood. There's the date she has, which is a little different, and then there's the ending bit, which I'm supposedly guessing is all serious. I don't think anything in episode 9 and 10 is supposed to be funny, but everything else is very either or, I suppose. You don't know if she's
And her
thinking
interrog
on something,
not
but
sorry, her talk with Jess and Tasha,
Sasha,
whatever her
Yeah,
friend.
Tosh.
Tasha, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, she wasn't completely serious there. She knew they were lying to her, and she's kind of stringing them along there. That's not ambiguous. That is portrayed through her acting and her lines. And I don't think what you're describing is the acting, because something that'd be bad acting off a script would be like if the script's like, uh, "What are you doing?" and the scenario provided is like somebody cutting their best friend and killing them, but the actor's like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" instead of "What are you doing?" That's an acting problem because the acting doesn't match the scenario provided by the writing. That's an acting issue. What's provided here, I don't see that as an acting issue. She's still portraying things with the that fit the context of the writing.
Okay, you okay? We see it differently in that aspect, which is fine. You see it as it needs to be more heavily, not necessarily exaggerated, but more on the face level of an expression or emotion used in a given scenario at a time. I see it more as there shouldn't be a need to guess which she's playing at uh, because of her role of a character.
So you're saying it's the actor's job to act the way the writing should or the situation should be, not what's written.
Can you give it a specific example that isn't the Ethan one of
Uh,
where her
there's
acting's ambiguous?
there's the yeah the when she goes to the clue room after it's being um shoot, she talks to the guy who is not.
Her date, or whatever.
The
Okay.
the
No, no,
coroner guy
no.
or whatever.
There's some other. No, it's some other agent. It's not. It's not when they go and they're like
Anderson.
shooting at the people. She's talking with someone about the clue room. Like they're in the set of the clue room, and I think it's another FBI agent. I can't recall, but she's having a conversation with that person. I can't tell now if that conversation is all serious to the case of what's going on, or if that's her trying to play dumb, or if that's her trying to get information off of this person if they're on her side. It's so many, like, what is being portrayed here because of the questioning in the writing to her acting. There's no like back and forth of her like ripping off a mustache of like, oh, now she's being silly, now she's being serious. It's not like that full face value of it. It's I don't think she's acting serious the entirety of the time now, and I don't think she's acting silly the entire time or stupid, even though I feel like in a show like this, it could be easily said that way. Um, I see it as it's a guessing game, and because of it being a guessing game, affects the acting, where
I'm a
I
little
feel like it shouldn't.
I'm a little confused when you mean silly because the only times I can think of it are in appropriate times. Like I don't remember ever like watching it and thinking, "Oh, that's a really silly thing to say during an investigation or something." I'm a little, so I'm trying to figure out which
She's
scenes
more
you mean like
lighthearted
silly.
when she goes, I think, the second or third time back to the morgue, and he's on the computer and she's got like evidence, and she's being, I wouldn't say flirtatious with him, but with the doctor, but she's being a little more off guard and
Open.
easy and off open. I see that as more of the silly, like casual. I guess casual is more of the answer than silly. More of the casual side to the acting of being just more open to someone than the seriousness investigation of an FBI agent that she portrays at other points.
So
Couldn't that
why?
technically
No,
be a
no, no, no.
tactic? Okay, good.
Why? Why? I'll go off the smart example. Why does she have to strictly be one attribute of a character? Why does she have to strictly be serious?
She doesn't
In this
have to. No, no,
scenario,
no. I'm not.
she's knows this guy,
You have me
so why
slightly
can't she
confused.
be
No,
casual
she
with him?
can she can be casual. She can be either or. She can be whatever she'd like. But because of the writing given before, it's now a guessing game as to what is the casual portraying for a manipulation tactic to get to him? Is the casual being she's actually casual in the situation? Is she it's such a hard thing to tell of the acting now of where it's being played because of it.
So in the morgue example, you personally cannot tell if she's using him or just being kind. You're saying that's an
No, because
ambiguous
of the
thing.
example of the whole Ethan situation that I brought up. Yeah, no, it can be seen either way.
I don't think it can. I think it's quite obvious that she's just being kind and courteous with him because she doesn't use him strictly for his position. Because she does end up going on a date with him. She's not just
But
like,
does she go
"I
out of
need
date
you, I
out
need
of
you, I need
actually
you, I need you. I'm not
does
going
she
to
go out of the
leave."
date because of actually liking him and being interested in him, or does she go on the date to get information out of him?
He
Well,
didn't need to
okay,
go on a date to get information. It's his job, and he
I,
took it up. It's off the
I'm
books
gonna
technically because of what she requested of him, but he was totally fine doing it. He didn't need to go
I
on a date to do that.
I'm gonna take a quick aside here, and I think you're getting a little. It's just my, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're getting a little. You're kind of you. So this is written terribly. I'm not gonna say that this isn't. This is definitely a written terribly show. So a lot of stuff is sped up here that wouldn't like. Obviously, she wouldn't go on a date with this guy after like 2 meetings with him. That's not realistic. But I think you're getting a little bit confused with the poorly writtenness of this versus the acting itself. So I don't believe that she would go on a date with the guy after like 2 meetings, but I also don't see that as a character problem. I see that as a writing problem.
Well, a
That's a
character problem is a writing problem.
He
well,
meant
no,
acting
yeah,
problem. I'm sorry.
acting problem. Sorry, acting
Okay.
problem. I don't see that as an acting problem. I see that as a writing problem. So she has to now. Her character wouldn't go out on a date with this guy after 2 meetings, but because she has to now act for that scenario.
No,
So
I know I agree with you that her character situation is writing. It goes on to like going to the date kind of thing. The acting for me is like at the said date, how is she portraying herself to get information out of him? How is she portraying herself to actually be interested in him, to actually be flirtatious with him? That all falls onto the acting, and because of the writing, it now varies into a guessing game,
Well,
which
can't it be all
damages the
three?
acting to me.
Granted, I haven't seen the scene, but can't it be all three of those together? Because I
All
mean,
three are damaged. I
yeah,
would agree. Like they all play off of each other,
no,
so
I
yeah.
mean,
But
you misunderstood what I'm saying. I'm saying the character can. I'm saying the actor can do all three of those things at once. A good actor can take a bad script and still play it off, all the aspects that they can take out of it.
yes,
I granted, again, I haven't seen a scene, so I can't speak to her acting. So I'm kind of relying on everybody else here. Because for me, all I can understand, the only thing that I can interpret out of this is potentially a tonal issue, but I don't know because I haven't watched the scene.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't choose. I haven't chosen an example from the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But I can't recall much on Ross in the first 3 episodes other than the whole
It's
uh,
just mostly her
lie
and
through teeth
Henderson and the
situation thing.
interrogation thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What little I have of her, the scene she was involved in was okay, but Jess and Tasha were fucking stupid.
but yeah, I mean that's it. Yeah. Give it-
It made me appreciate National Treasure One that they actually went through all the humbug of at least making them go into the FBI intelligent and among other things.
Oh yeah, and I guess we're rolling off the end of this topic, I guess, because it sounds like we'll just leave it. I guess. They try to treat Jess kind of like Ben, where he's smart, but the way Ben is smart is far superior to how Jess is smart. I,
I
I don't
I
know. I don't remember specifically what happens. She solves the puzzle box at some point in one of these, and the hammer, right? You've seen that,
Oh,
yes,
episode
I did.
one. Where she's
or the gavel. Yeah. How do you feel about her solving puzzles? And I guess the escape room as well. I suppose.
Is this question for me or a question for
Yeah,
Smite?
it's for
Yeah,
you.
for you.
Okay.
But we talked about it on the pod. I don't didn't talk to you
y-
about it.
So I think I like the visual aesthetic that goes with her, like solving problems, because it has a very Sherlock Holmesy-esque thing where she's just kind of seeing the clues pop up off the ground for us. So we have like a visual cue of how her brain is working. I do like that. Um, However, in terms of the puzzle solving, it's trying to think of best to describe it. It's like connecting dots without a through line. It reminds me like National Treasure One. They do a very good job of at least giving you good context to frame everything. National Treasure Two does do that at least half the time. The other times they are making stretches, but it feels like most of the puzzles that she's solving is more uh gimmicky than intellectual, if that makes sense.
Or
So it's less
solving
because
that puzzle box is yikes.
actually here's a better version. Uh, Ben is more solving riddles, while uh, Jess is more solving like a Rubik's cube kind of thing. She's doing more hands-on kind of puzzle solving. They're different, but I don't know how. In the first 2 episodes, I don't have enough context to see how this is going to get worse or better as the show goes
Yeah,
along.
it's unfortunate that writer didn't get to episode 4 because there's
Mhm.
big examples in episode 4 of it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll
I wasn't
No, it's
expecting you to
cool.
get to 3
You saw that
episodes.
Elvis quote unquote heist. So you're
yeah, the quote unquote heist. I had a bit of a headache for that.
yeah. My biggest thing with that is they say, hey, leave no evidence, and then singer country boy Liam leaves a whole bag of clothes and everything in a bathroom.
Yeah, that was really stupid.
Anyway,
All right,
cool.
so we didn't. Yeah, we didn't get. It looks like Crimson did not get the answer he was hoping for from that question. But we're gonna move on probably
Well, I mean,
now.
that's only part of it.
No, yeah, they're
Oh,
different.
okay, we got more. All right, never mind.
That's when we get into like surprise ratings question.
Okay.
Sprinks was preemptively lowering
Oh
it
yeah,
before
no,
we get to that topic.
I knew you would get me, but I mean, you made it pretty clear at the end of the end of
I was
recording.
warning you.
Yeah.
Giving you a heads up. We didn't get much of your thoughts on National Treasure 2. Anything in particular you want to say about it?
Oh shoot! I should have organized my notes for this. Um, I think overall, I did quite enjoy the film. I think I've also said that like I think it does some things that are weaker than the first film. I'm pulling up my notes right now to see if I can skim through it and give you something a bit more articulated. Da, 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 da.
Definitely relies on more conveniences.
Definitely rise of more communities. I thought Wilkinson. Uh, I didn't really understand his turn at the end. Okay, he's not wholly evil, but it was never really I didn't feel like it was set up at all.
The turn as in he would
Yeah,
die there.
he sacrifices himself for Ben, and
Yeah, we kind of discussed that, and my thought on it was he saw the situation, he wasn't getting out, so it's either kill Ben and himself or let Ben go and he still dies. There was
yeah,
no way of getting out of that.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm fine with it. I don't need him to be like a whole on villain. I don't know. I think I'd preferred it to be supported a little bit more to show that he's more like goal oriented than like hostage taking villainous. Though
He kind of helped Abigail on the ladder. I think it was
uh,
Abigail, maybe it was Riley. I don't remember.
yeah. Well, the reason I was suspicious about that is
It was
because
Riley.
the reason I
Okay.
didn't the reason I didn't like use that as support is because he left to get a knife to use later on.
Insurance. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is outnumbered.
That's true.
Yes.
I'm fine. Like I said, I'm fine with him arming himself too. But it's one of those things where it's like it was the idea of him wanting to or being willing to do that was not as strongly supported because of the fact that he went for a knife and stuff like that. Like I'd say I agree that it makes logical sense. I think I just needed one more thing to kind of round that out
Yeah,
because it feels a bit rushed.
that's kind of where I fell with it because I feel like through most of it they set him up to be a villain in this, kind of like Ian, and then his sort of change at the end. I feel like they kind of rushed to get in as much as they could to make it seem like not that unbelievable, but it just doesn't. It's so much at the end and not really put throughout that it just doesn't feel as authentic as it probably could have been. I don't have a problem with him doing it in general. It's just the execution of it, I think, was what kind of irked me. It does move a lot faster than the first one.
Let's see.
I mean, we could go on for a whole another hour just asking questions about
Maybe we could
National
just
Treasure
let's just
2.
you know what? Let's just do National Treasure 2 for the rest of
No,
this
no,
and Bow.
I'm sure if anyone has any actual questions or more questions for Ryder specifically about the National Treasure 2 Book of Secrets, you can let us know down in the comments below of wherever you're listening to.
Or general questions
Riley in
about
this
Civil War. He knows that too.
Riley in this film, I didn't like as much. He pretty much got elevated to Hiroka from Belle. So,
Oh,
uh,
oh, I have a question for you, Ryder, then, about Riley.
all
In
right.
the first 20, You just said you didn't like him overall. In the first quarter of the film, okay?
No, 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 no. I didn't say I like him overall. I said I did. I said I liked him less.
Okay, you liked him less. In the first 25% of the film, does he come across as a completely different?
Yes.
Okay. Does he come across
Um,
as a bit more pessimistic?
pessimistic. Uh, mm, mm,
Do you want to add some
no.
context, Franks?
Yeah, do
There
you want
was,
to add context to that? I think I
to
need
me,
context.
during the part where they're scanning with Abigail the piece of paper to look at it, and Riley's doing like, his banter or quips, they came across as more rude or more pessimistic to me opposed to his regular humor in the first film. But only for the like this kind of beginning part of the quarter of the film, and then it gradually becomes more into just regular Riley.
Um,
And then I provided a couple examples of pessimistic jokes from the first movie.
okay. I mean, I like at sound of it. Yeah, sure, he comes across as pessimistic, but that doesn't break his character.
No,
So
no, I'm not
I
saying it's a
mean,
directly at the 25% point he's changed.
okay. Um, yeah, I mean, the it works. Yeah, I'd probably say he's a little bit more on the pessimistic side for the first 25%. I think it's supports kind of his living, what's going on with him in his life. He doesn't have his book is not as successful as he'd want it to be. Uh, his car gets towed, stuff like that.
He's a
You
little
know,
down in the dumps.
yeah, he's a
IRS
little
is
down the
after
dump.
him.
Yeah, so uh, I think I'd agree that he's probably a bit more pessimistic from what I little I remember, but I don't think it bothered me at all.
Okay.
The main thing that bothered me about Riley is where in the first movie, all his tech support stuff being the man in the chair, there was like setup for it, and then I used my example from Belle, the character Hiroka, who just can do anything with the internet. It felt like that's exactly what Riley was doing in this film. He was just there to do everything on the internet.
The stupid traffic cam.
Yeah, yeah,
That was
exactly. He's like, yo, you can hack into the CTT, and I'm like, I'm just offended that you think I could do that. I'll just do that for you. That he just does it because of course
Hacking
he
into
does.
Buckingham Palace from a
Yep,
bathroom.
from a bathroom. Like because in the first heist from the first movie, like you could there's a setup for him getting to the cameras. Like he's going down there hacking into the sewer.
He had a
The
hardline connection. This
Yeah,
was
exactly.
wireless. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more like are grounded in the first film when compared to the second. Uh, oh, since I brought up one of Belle's characters, I am lowering that subjective by at least a point.
Bell's
Now that
going
I
down?
know what, yes, subjectively it's going down a point.
Oh, wow.
be the
From
the
from a
longest
9 to an
difference.
8.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's going
that'd
from
be
nine
the
to an eight because now that I have an array of things at a nine, Belle doesn't really sit with them. I love Belle a lot personally, but it doesn't sit with what's up there. So,
be the longest gap with a change.
Almost.
possibly.
Sprinks
Well,
changed men.
Oh,
I did.
I'll do one here at Sinister while I'm at it. I'm gonna lower my subjective rating for Doctor Strange 2.
okay.
Did you watch it again?
I did, and you know what?
Oh,
I did not want to. I was kind of strong armed into doing that, and you know what? Visuals don't age well.
You mean the third
Still,
eyeball
6 to
doesn't
what?
hold up?
no, it doesn't. Visuals don't age well, and you know what? I think I just hated everything more. I didn't have any enjoyment on it as
I
much
think
enjoyment.
I think writer has gotten a little bit more pessimistic recently, more
Oh,
cynical.
He's
I'm
trying to
definitely.
Riley.
Well, I mean, look, I'm watching two of my favorite franchises growing up, being the MCU and Star Wars, just getting slowly and slowly worse.
Yeah,
So I've lost a lot of my love for both franchises, unfortunately, at this rate. So
hey,
yeah, I don't deny that my pessimism is kind of through the roof with both.
the more bad things you watch raises the good.
It's true. I appreciate Iron Man 1 so much more. And Batman Begins, and uh, I appreciate Andor being the only Disney Star Wars that was really good so far. But yeah, I definitely it's
and
true.
then
Raises the good.
unfortunately, nobody watched it hardly at all.
Yeah, I'm still happy they're greenlit for season 2. I'm still happy that's
Good.
going forward
They,
because it deserves it.
that's their last chance to kind of, I think, get in a bunch of audience people. I
Yeah.
think if that goes the same way the first one did, they're gonna be done with doing anything that's not Han Solo or Luke Skywalker. You're gonna be like, no, they're gonna learn. Disney's gonna learn the wrong lesson again.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh shoot, people didn't like
Right.
Edge of History. I
Yeah,
guess we'll
it's out.
just take out all the treasure stuff and just keep the teen drama.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just make Riverdale. It's ending. Let's just make another Riverdale.
Oh man, can you imagine a adaptation for National Treasure that's just Riverdale?
No.
I mean, that's basically
Uh,
history, isn't
that's
it?
kind of Edge of History.
I know a little bit, right? Like,
There's a reveal later that I would imagine would be really at home at Riverdale.
yeah,
Uh,
can't wait to find out about that.
No, I don't.
No,
Just don't do
you're
it.
good.
Honest,
As we said,
it's
episode 4 is probably the best episode out of them all.
yeah.
But
I mean, if you're gonna watch one, watch that one. Uh, don't.
right.
It's not worth it.
Yes.
You said you were changing your Doctor Strange. It was originally 6. What is it now?
Subjective? Oh, yeah, that's down to a 4 at least.
Okay,
big
there
bump.
you go. Any other changes from anybody?
You are
At this
Except Prince
time,
and
no.
Ryder now.
you are juking Crimson stats that he works so hard to curate.
I don't update those from recaps. This is for the audience's knowledge.
Yeah.
All right.
So, did you want to go into the surprise ratings since we're just going
I
over
will,
rating?
since we
I mean,
since we touched on it.
that
Yeah.
was a pretty big surprise. I think we're done. Did it down.
Any surprise ratings from this season?
Uh,
Sequel season?
Yeah, I have one. It's a surprise because it caught me off guard. Not so much as a surprise, like I didn't expect it to happen.
Mhm.
Was Crimson you giving National Treasure a 10, which is the first like 10 that's occurred.
I never
the
thought I'd be the
subjective?
first one to give a 10.
Yeah,
Mm-mm. I thought for sure it would be you or Sinister.
and we just
No,
haven't
I'm
covered
too
one
much
of
of
my
a.
10s yet.
I'm just a whore for statistics, so I haven't really felt to getting anything a 10.
But you almost gave American Movie a 10.
I did until everybody else was kind of poo pooing on it. So I was like, well, that's not really fair if I do it. So I don't
Yeah,
want to be the
yeah,
lone gunman here.
Oh, don't
yeah. I
take that
mean,
peer
like,
pressure.
to be fair,
Uh,
I know you combine your rating scale, but I honestly think you could have, if you gave that a subjective, like if you didn't combine your rating scale and you gave it a subjective 10, I don't think any of us would have batted an eye.
No.
You know?
and but then I would have lost my individuality. So, and that's a bigger death, I think, than giving it a 10. Not a 10.
What are you talking about? We're here to defile art all the time.
I know.
I don't think
Or
we ever
raise it.
fight or quarrel over a subjective
Oh
rating.
no
Really?
no no. That's
Have we?
No, subjective. We never really talk too
no,
much on.
because subjective.
It's how you feel. There's not
Yeah,
really
Yeah,
much
objective is always
debate
the
on it.
question.
Yeah,
you're
I
probably
mean,
the closest that we fight on, but that's just because we think you get it confused with an objective scale sometimes.
Yes.
That's the closest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the closest.
but yeah, I mean, there's that also the thing that we don't talk about that often when it comes to subjective. It's just like what made you feel that way and why. We don't really delve into that all that much often.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we
So
probably could in
I
the
guess
future.
Crimson, like, why do you feel like National Treasure deserves a 10? Like, why? I mean, like, I know, like,
Defend it right now.
yeah, no,
Defend
no,
your
Yeah,
I'm not
subjective
asking.
scale.
I'm not
No,
asking
I
you to
know.
defend him,
I'm
but
joking. I'm
I'm
joking.
like, I know he has a lot of nostalgia attached to it, so I kind of want him to kind of maybe expand on that. Like why he feels this way and stuff like that.
it's a very nostalgia based decision, giving it a 10. Uh, I like history. I don't know if it's come from this directly, but this is definitely a facet I would imagine. And it's just one of the movies I've watched the most in my life. I think. Yeah,
Because of its entertainment value.
It'd probably be up there. Entertainment value. It's good to just put on if you don't know what to watch.
Hmm.
It's a comfort movie, I suppose. There's nothing that bugs me about it. I enjoy everything. The jokes are on point.
Has anyone in
It's
your
smooth ride.
life, personally, that you know of, given anything negative about it? Like, has
My
anyone
mom.
called it childish or
My mom.
like a history program, so it's boring? Like anything in that regard, or
I don't know anyone that's called it boring, but my mom has walked in while I've watched it and said that's stupid. stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Like
I was gonna
when
say
the
something and I
elevator is
didn't.
getting lowered and everything's falling apart. Like, this looks dumb. What are you
I
watching?
I mean, I think the closest thing you could ever say about it is there's some, like, cliches, and there's some, like, just action movie, just, like, regular, things that, like, "Oh, come on, that wouldn't actually happen," or, da da da, all that stuff,
Death
but
defying.
yeah, Bulletproof,
Having read a
Miraculous.
lot of reviews for the Critics on Critics segment, a lot of the complaints for the two movies for National Treasure is Nicolas Cage, uh,
which is an
wh-
accurate complaint, but go on.
whiteness, I guess, and
What? Is
conveniences.
whiteness?
Just whiteness. It's like
They're gonna say
white
they whitewashed.
superiority and
They're
all
gonna
that
they're gonna say they
nonsense.
whitewashed
Oh,
the
I'm not gonna
history
get
because
too deep into it, but those are
okay.
the main complaints.
Yeah,
I thought you were like I thought it was like whiteness and like white knighting or something. I was like
No.
curious what white meant.
well, I mean,
It's too
I'm
bright. The
gonna,
exposure's too
I'm,
high.
I mean,
He was too pale.
I can't interpolate stupid all that much, but I would like to imagine that when they say that they're just referring to like, oh, of course, that a white man is the one that's saving all these indigenous treasures.
Yeah, stuff like that. And then more for the first one than the second one. There's also a fair amount that said it was boring.
Okay.
I don't know how you get boring out of National Treasure, but good on
Well,
them.
coming for you, giving
Well,
it a 10, it's
I
probably
mean, the
hard
movie
to wrap your
doesn't
brain around.
start. The movie doesn't
Well,
start until like
I
20 minutes
think I can.
in.
I'd like to think I can disconnect fairly well uh, with stuff. But we discussed how well paced this movie was. No one really said there was anything slow about it.
The intro might be the slowest part. I think like the first 10 minutes might be a little bit slower than the rest of the movie, but they're
Everything
building.
before
Yeah,
Nicolas Cage with
yeah.
Grandpa.
The grandpa telling a
Oh,
story and then him just sitting in an iceberg for like 10 minutes, deciphering until like the bomb goes off or whatever. That's the slowest part of the movie, I think. I think
probably the
it gets
slowest, but I think it's
yeah.
still decently
Like I
paced.
said, I'm not saying it's like molasses slow,
Yeah.
but it's slow in comparison to the rest of the movie.
It's faster paced than the beginning of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, to be fair, Blade Runner does have a really slow dolly thing, so they were kind of set up for a slow start. And
Any other
nobody
surprises?
laughed, so I'm just gonna breeze right through
Dumb.
there.
I'm sorry, I did laugh. I guess it didn't come through.
I thought I heard one, but then I didn't see any audio peaks. But okay,
Any other surprise ratings from individuals?
just the obvious one, but I think you want to tackle that, so I'm
Uh, I guess writer. Yeah, I'll say mine for last. 'Cause it's probably gonna be
yeah,
the
yeah,
longest one.
probably.
Yes, go on.
Do you have any surprise ratings or no?
Let's see. I don't think so. Um, I, well, I mean, like I said, I wasn't present for the show, so I can't
Yeah.
really speak to the ratings on the show and stuff like that. But uh,
Okay.
no, I think everything else kind of fell in line where I might have expected it to for that particular person. So I don't really have a surprise rating.
So I spent a good hour going through our content, maybe even more, so I could formulate a good discussion here with Sprinks and his rating, which is now a 5.5,
Yes.
which could invalidate a couple of the points I had on here. So I'll not mention those points. But I did have some comparative ratings that you've had in other movies.
Okay.
See if you would either change National Treasure or the others, or say they're both fine. I'll start with something low. Cranks, you gave a 4.5, which I think makes sense with your rating scale. This is something I would see more in line with Edge of History, though. I see as many issues in Edge of History as Cranks, going off of what I perceive your scale to be. This is where I would see it in line. So I guess why is Cranks lower than Edge of History? What did Edge of History do at this point? 1 point better. It was originally two.
Let's see here.
Let's battle the minds begin.
First thing that comes to mind is shot locations. Um, camera work.
Whoa, wait. You got to talk more on that. What's wrong with Crank's location?
It's a house. Mostly just two
What's wrong with that?
houses.
It takes place on a street. Why is that bad?
It's just bland. It feels
How's that
kind of
object?
no. It feels kind of out of place whenever they go to a different location, like the grocery store or the mall. It's not really. It's it's a little jarring because it's just popped. It's not really like blend like transitioned in any way of like I think the only one's like I'm going to the store to go get honey baked ham. So Nora's going to the store. Um, but like the chocolate situation in the butcher to start with, I think is fine because it starts, but then it's just like a lot of like cut shots or cut location to location. I guess the best one is probably Luther going over to the neighbors in the snow and like standing in the middle, like making the decision about the tickets and everything. I think that's the best like place to place, but there's parts that are just cut, like going to the mall just cuts to the mall, or the airport just cuts to the airport, or Luther at work just cuts there. There's no flow of transitional pieces, which I guess is just
Would you
of the
want a star
time.
wipe? I'm confused.
No, it's just like
It
of the
fits the
time
scenes.
scene, kind of scene selection. I don't know if it fully kind of goes into the quality of the said movie of just going into the next scene that abrupt. But for National Treasure, I think it had a lot more like where the characters are and where they're going, so it cuts to the apartment. The only one that's well, that doesn't count as transition. You know where they're planning on going or doing or solving, unless it's like a cliffhanger situation. But then the problem with that is that it just throws in a character, like Oren just always having access to the apartment and he just shows up, or Billy somehow getting Oren's attention with a dockyard full of shoes, and you don't know how or where that happened, but you have the conversation overall and where they're going to meet and situation, so it like lines up in that way, or Tasha being like, let's go to the FBI, let's not go to the FBI, and then they show up there, so it's not just like cut they're at the building.
Isn't that more to do with
I
exposition
guess that's
and
more.
editing than
Yeah, that
location?
you're right. Sorry, that flows more into transitional pieces.
I
Uh,
I still don't know why those transitions are bad. That they do their job. That the cut to the airport. They talk about going to the airport, and then we go to the airport.
Then that's
Did you
fine.
want a drive to the airport?
No, that's fine
No,
if
you brought that up as bad because it's jarring. That's what you said.
if there's nothing to
Why is
connect
that
the
bad?
transition.
The
you
connection
you
is that
just
they're going to the airport.
and they bring up they're going to the airport, you just said, correct?
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
it's fine because you
But
know
you
where they're
said it
going.
was bad.
Okay, let me rephrase. I have no memory of them talking about let's go to the airport. You just brought up they did. I'm trusting you that that's what's happened, so I'm going
They
with it.
wake up from the alarm clock,
Is every
and
single cut
they need
in
to
that
get the
film,
daughter to the airport.
is every single cut in Christmas Cranks them saying, we're going here, this is where I'm going, this is what's going
Well,
to
the
happen
cut to the
next?
store. They're like, we need to go get ham for the party. Then we cut to the store where she's buying ham. Th- They're not just out of nowhere. They do talk about that stuff.
Of every single transition,
What?
or quote unquote
The
cut.
examples you provided for me, yes.
Luther has a job, so obviously when he's not at home, he's more than likely going to be at work. Correct?
With what we know
Does
of
he
him,
need
yeah.
does he need to say every single time anytime like he's not at home, he has to cut to like, honey, I am going to work today, every single time?
Yes. Being that it only occurs once of him being at work.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about the
Where he
once
drops his
rule.
phone in his pocket or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Gonna be honest, I can't really I don't really have a dog in this fight because I don't really remember
Okay.
Christmas with Franks. Yeah, so I'm just trying to help out a little bit, expanding
To
here.
go then with what you originally said for this Crimson, they both stand at where they are.
I guess I also have more of an expanding question for you, Spriggs, to follow this up. So, uh, 12 Angry Men takes place in one room for a majority of the film, but I assume that you don't find that location boring. You just
No.
right. Okay. So we can I guess that means in establishing then I guess what's the difference between like if a story takes place mostly in the house as it does in Christmas Cranks and then mostly in a room with Twinkle Dreaming and how are those two things distinguished in order for I guess you to rate Christmas of the Cranks much lower than you would 12 Angry Men on location?
If 12 Angry Men had cuts to just go back to like the defendant, the kid, like sitting, like just cut back to that of him just being there, and then they cut back to the room they're in, or if it cuts to the court, or if it cut to the apartment they're talking about, like if it just cut out of the room, taking those shots out to only be disgust of the room strengthens it. In Christmas with Cranks, if they're discussing where they go, I think some parts of Christmas with Crank could have been strengthened if they just cut. But then again, being a comedy, I don't think it would have changed the dynamic of the humor coming across, because the whole like grocery store thing is like chasing the other lady, get the one ham, and then she got fish, and it's like, oh, they got fish for the party. It's kind of like the jokey part of it, rather than just cutting back to Nora getting home angry and being like, all they had was fish. Like you kind of missed that whole funny part of it. Like 12 Angry Men, there wouldn't really be something there to cut that would like add other than simply visual, because it's already being all discussed in dialogue between the jurors. So taking out anything that is, which in the film there is nothing, strength, it's fine. Cranks, if it's something that isn't a joke, but it's hard to go with the two because there isn't a dialogue part of joke scene to include in 12 Angry Men. The only thing I can think of is the conversation in the bathroom. But even in the bathroom, you see people going, you hear them talk of like, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm going to wash my hands, I'm going to go cool. Like they discuss what's happening. That's the only really other location change rather than just a
Yeah.
jarring cut. Cranks is jarring cuts at points of going to other places without giving explanation as to where they're going, how they're getting there. The ones I gave, unfortunately, I don't recall, but Crimson brought up in memory that there is transitional pieces through use of dialogue of where they are heading or going.
Yeah, okay. My other question is more based off of like, because I don't think I talked to you this before, but would you prefer a location like, 'cause you said location being, was another thing you brought up, but I don't know if that's changed to transition entirely, but the location idea sparked something in me. Would you view something filmed in, say, like the volume from The Mandalorian or the volume from, I guess, all the modern Marvel movie stuff in comparison to like filming on location? Would you view that as worse then?
Processing.
Like,
Um,
yeah, okay, yeah,
Beep, boop, beep, boop.
mm, that's a good question. I think that really depends on the context. If it's a fictional thing that can't be done, then yes. Uh, I do. Unfortunately, I think that falls more into subjective than objective, because I'm one who definitely prefers more, the puppeteering Yoda versus CGI Yoda. I'm
yeah.
far more into the practical effects than CGI effects. So
Oh
I think
man.
that's into subjectivity of that, of being a real on-set made set location situation versus a green screened, in studio area.
Mhm. All right. Yeah.
So
Okay.
piggybacking off you pointing that out as subjective, during the location example for the cranks, you said the house and the store were boring locations, but you were pointing that as an objective flaw. Isn't that the same comparison that writer just made with
I will say my
on location and
confusion
the
of your
review thing?
question that I was going to progress, because I didn't know of this question at the time. I did, off the top of my head. Location shots, I fear is not what I meant to say, but transitional pieces. I know I'm backpedaling. I apologize for those yelling.
It's okay.
I'm
Fine.
backpedaling to go to that. I think the transitional usage is not as good with no exposition, as Sinister said, or anything to transition the pieces between the two, and it's a cut jar.
Like I said, I had a list of things. This went on already longer than I thought with the cranks example.
Well, you asked
So I'll
why.
just yeah. So value out of 7. That's not really applicable anymore. You dropping it. Mr. Smith, you had 6.5, which was equivalent. So I will indeed ask this because you originally compared Mr. Smith being just as well made as Edge of History, and would like to pick your brain on that.
Uh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they were equally rated.
Action's better,
Same
Mr.
with
I
Nutcracker.
mean, Nutcracker I can see is more on par. Nutcracker definitely has a lot more CGI use, but that's fine because it's not 1-to-1 scale. It's what does some better, what does some worse. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think, had better acting overall of the cast. I think, mm, I think choreography is better in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think the lighting is better in National Treasure, the show. I think some of the camera work is better in the National Treasure show. I think the writing's better in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Um, I can't really go into directing or anything because different episodes are directed by different people. They weren't all directed, all 10 episodes weren't all directed by the same, so it can't be a one for one
Right.
on that. I think the editing, off the top of my head, is about on par for both. Yeah, okay, so yeah, about even still.
It sounds like
I,
no,
I,
you
I
listed more
had to I had to
positives for
cover my
Mr. and
mouth.
Mrs. Smith.
I had to
Whatever
cover my
helps.
mouth.
Uh,
Which I mean, if he did, it's more. It fits here now that he's lowered it.
yeah, they compare better now. Yes, I agree. But the fact that initially you did view them the same was astonishing to me. That was the whole reason I deep dove into comparing
Yes.
because I knew that for
My
sure was a 6.5.
As you should all know by this point, my scorings of things that match are not one for ones of match that they're all equal in every regard.
Unfortunately, we have a scale, and it has to. It is
That's why I asked
representative.
for
Yeah.
what did one do better than the other because
That's
one
what
could
I
do
just
something
listed
better
off.
than the
Yeah.
other. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why I asked that specifically. Uh, okay, all right. Fine. You answered that. I'm not going to probe it further. Yeah, Secret Garden was also at the same level as Nutcracker, Mr. and Mrs. Smith at 6.5. Um, da, 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 da. Well, I'm like all I wrote was Treasure. The animated Treasure Planet. You had that at 6. So you had that objectively worse originally than you did for Edge of History. Do you feel that it is 0.5 better now since you've adjusted to it being 5.5?
No, they're both at the same place. 5.5 and a 6.
All right, Thunder Force you gave a 6. Changeling you gave a 6. I know you're steady on Changeling. Apple Dumpling Game you gave a 5, which is relevant to the season. Do you think that is objectively worse than Edge of History?
Yes.
All right. I'll leave it at that because we spent a lot of time on this. So,
I think all my scores
do we
stay
want
in
to
their
move
place.
on to the segment section?
The segment section? You mean the
The
game
segment
section?
section. Sure. We didn't really give it a specific name. I think we
No.
just referred to it as a segment. So.
Sure, definitely. Let's go into that. That's fun. I'd like everyone to get a paper and pencil if you can. From last time's recap of season 9 recap, where we started this, was Trivia Tag, where we got 0 points across the board because no one got a single trivia question correct. So everyone's still at 0.
No, I
And
got one right.
you
I
did
got my
get one right?
second one wrong. Yeah.
I don't remember writing down anyone getting any points out of that.
I answered somebody's right, which we said we
Oh, answering
steal
someone
them.
else's question does not get a point for yourself. You're just answering that person's question. I think. I can't recall. Okay, it was a long time ago. I think no one got a point because no one wrote anything down as a point. So
No one
everyone's
got a
still at 0.
point.
Everyone's still at
Well,
0.
nobody got it. That's what I remember. Nobody got it.
All right, so this time, the way how the point would work with this is whoever gets voted on by the community and audience gets said point. So on a piece of paper, I'd like you all to write down the numbers 1 through 10, just down a list.
Oh boy.
This little segment is called Lineup, where I will be giving you a character or something from what we have covered, because that's kind of the jurisdiction of ruling that I've been performed. It has to be something we've covered. I will give you a character, and going off of their costume or outfit, rate it on a scale of 1 through 10. You can only have one for each. So, like the first one I give you, you can be placed anywhere. The second one I give you cannot be put in the number you gave the previous one. So, at the end, all 10 characters will have each a placement.
What if they wear multiple costumes?
I believe if it comes up in that instance, you can ask for a clarification. I think I have these all set specific costumes.
And can we number them once all 10 have been listed?
Yes, at the end, once all 10 have been listed. Oh no! Once I give you one, you put it in. When I give you the
Alright.
first character, you write it in where you want to put it. When we're done, we will go down the line. I am refraining because I know what all 10 characters are. When we're done, you will list off your list from 1 to 10. 1 is being the best, 10 is being the worst, and the audience will decide who has the best list.
I have my 1 to 10.
I got my 1 to 10.
Okay.
Uh,
First character we're starting off was Mr. Fantastic from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-mm. I don't even know where to put it because I don't know what the other characters are going to be.
That's I guess
I
it's
don't know
part
if
of the
that's a
challenge.
mid or a good choice compared to how many bad options are going to get thrown in.
I guess the costume's accurate, right? But it's
I mean, it's blue and it's got a 4 on it. You can tell who it is. All right, got my written down.
All right,
alright, I got mine.
good. Number 2, or I guess I shouldn't give numbers, just the second one, the next one in the line. Russell Donovan's introduction outfit when he's on his horse all in black
Who the heck's Russell Donovan?
from Apple Dumpling Game.
Is he the
and who the hell is Russell
sheriff?
Donovan?
Oh, I never
Oh,
hear him referred to as Russell.
Donovan.
Mr.
Sorry.
Donovan. That's right. Okay. In his black outfit.
Yes. The first night in
Okay.
Quake City when he's gambling.
Okay, Bill Bixby.
Mm,
alright, I got it.
Everyone good on that one?
Yeah.
Next, Jane Cobb with the orange hat from Firefly.
Jane.
The man they call Jane.
With the hat and the yellow shirt.
Yes.
And the brown pants.
I think that was episode 7?
Six. Episode
6.
6.
Thank you.
Janetown. Mm. Wait, no, that wasn't Janetown.
No, that was not Janetown.
No.
That's when
Yeah,
they
yeah, that
get
was
the
episode
guy.
7. That was the body one.
They get it in the mail.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, I
episode
was gonna let that go, but
I was right.
Springs was
You were right. Okay.
Got Jane written down?
It fits the
Yeah.
character. Not sure. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, next one. Hopefully I pronounced this correctly. Kazuki Sugar from Weathering With You, his introduction outfit.
I'm out of this question.
The main
Kazuki.
character.
Not the main character, the one who takes him in under his wing, who has the apartment.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of in the flip-flops,
The PI.
the
guy.
boxers,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Or the,
When you first get
journalist guy.
introduced to him.
Mhm.
Don't remember his first outfit that much. Am I allowed to look it up?
Kind of
Sure,
a
but
sloppy-ish outfit.
yeah, I think he
Yeah.
has a bathrobe. Like a
Wait, so not when he's on the ship, but when he's in the house.
in the house. Yes, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. 'Cause we meet him at the beginning of the film. That's what I
Yeah,
thought you were
no,
talking.
not the ship. His house.
What was his name again so I can write it?
Kazuki Sugar.
Alright, I'll put sugar. Alright.
I guess next time for this I should have like the actual images of the characters.
Yeah, probably, but yeah.
Trial and error. New game.
All right.
Okay. Next one. Count Volpe from Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Well, alright. That's the fox guy.
Yes.
Right? Alright, good.
Everyone good on that one?
Yeah.
All right. Next, Flip from Slumberland.
Oh, I didn't see.
I mean, that just gives you advantages, Sinister. You get more numbers to play with.
Not really, because now I don't know which ones I'm going to actually be. Just leaving it blank until I get all my
No.
numbers.
Do not put in blanks. You get your
I
character, you
already
fill
did.
it in.
This. Okay.
All right.
And I don't know, we'll give a moment to Sinister to catch up.
Well, it doesn't. I don't know what the character looks like, so why am I putting on a number?
Then that might be a
It's
good indistinction to just put him right in the middle.
okay. All right, I'm done.
Okay. Next is the Sugar Plum Fairy from Nutcracker in the Four Realms.
Is this at the end of the movie or?
In the yeah, her like pink dress.
Okay. All right. Good.
All right, third to last, Miss Marvel's final episode outfit that she wears.
Well, with my numbers left, that is not going to be where it should be.
Okay. We got 2 left here. Hopefully your 2 last numbers are well placed. Second to last, we have Mordecai from Lackadaisy.
Should also does not belong where I'm putting him. Oh wait, no, Mordecai's the cool cat.
Mordecai's
Yeah.
the bad guy cat.
Yeah, cool cat. Right, I'm good.
All right, and lastly, for your last spot available, Velma Dinkley from Mystery
Oh, you
Incorporated.
suck. You put that last because
From
you
Mystery
knew.
Incorporated. That was the joke. I'd put her last, but
Yeah.
it's not from the Velma show.
All right. Oh, yeah, got the list.
All right, we will start with Ryder to go down your list.
I'm missing a name.
You're missing one.
Yes.
List what you got.
I got Jane, Mr. Fantastic, Miss Marvel, Mordecai, Mr. Donovan, Flip, Count Volp, Sugar Plum Fairy, and Velma.
Did you get the sugar guy from Weathering with You?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
So do you want to start on number 10 or do you want to start with number 1?
I think my list is out of order, being one is supposed to be the best one, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna read mine backwards then. All right.
Okay, from
I'll
10.
do. All right. I'll start from. I'm starting from quote unquote my one, but I guess I'm not gonna confuse it. I'm just gonna read this off.
You're
Uh.
you're starting
All
with
right.
the worst.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. I have Kitsu from Weathering with You at the worst. I have then the number 9. I have Sugar Plum Fairy. At 7, I have Jane. At 6, I have Mr. Fantastic. At 5, I have Miss Marvel. At 4, I have um, Mordecai. At 3, I have. Did I skip a number?
I think you did.
Yeah. What did I skip?
8.
I think it was 7 or 8. Yeah.
All right.
I didn't realize this would be such a difficult game.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. 10 would be Kitsu. 9 would be Sugar Plum. 7. Oh yeah. 8 would be Jane. 7 would be Mr. Fantastic. 6 would be Miss Marvel. 5 would be Mordecai. 4 would be Mr. Donovan. 3 would be Flip. 2 would be Volp. And 1 would be Velma,
Okie doke.
according to my list.
Crimson, you're next.
Yeah, I'll start with the worst as well. 10 being Flip. 9, Sugar Plum Fairy. 8, the guy from Weathering with You. 7, Mr. Fantastic. 6, Volp. 5, Miss Marvel. 4, Donovan. 3, Jane. 2, Mordecai. And 1, Velma.
Okay. And Sinister,
have.
your list.
And I reversed the order by accident, so 10 is my lowest and 1 is my highest, technically. So,
Do the same thing as me. It's fine.
uh, actually, no, 1 is my worst and 10 is my highest.
Okay.
10, Velma. 9, Weathering with You. 8, Mordecai. 7, Mr. Fantastic. 6, Volp. Um, 5 Bill Bixby, 4 Jane, 3 Flip, 2 Plum, and 1 Miss Marvel.
Okay, and that was said in your original list of 1 being the worst?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, let us know down in the comments from where you are, who has the best list. That person will be receiving the point for the next recap.
Lovely.
And if
And
nobody
of
comments,
course, my
nobody gets
last
a
two
point.
true.
Sincere, that's
Lovely that the
exactly how
last
it'll
two
happen.
numbers, last two numbers I had were 1 and 2, so I had no choice. On that.
Ooh. Give yourself a little tough spot. It's interesting that Crimson, you and Ryder both gave Velma 1.
Well, that was my last spot
Yeah.
Last spot.
because I wouldn't want to put like Donovan at 1, and then you'd be like, I don't know, who has a good outfit, somebody better, and then I'm like, well, that doesn't work.
Gotcha. Next thing I think we can jump to a little, just a little announcement. Lackadaisy did hit their stretch goal
Yay!
for
Good for
their
them.
show, which
Ooh.
was a 1 million was their hit for all 5 all 5 episodes of a season. And then if they hit their 2 million stretch goal, they'd make Blu-rays of the show with commentary and behind the scenes and whatnot. And at the end of their uh, not is it Backer Kit or Kickstarter? It was Backer Kit, I think. At the end of Backer Kit, they hit over $2 million with 16,000 backers.
Congratulations to them, and I
Good for
guess the
them.
audience because they'll get it. And I'm
Look at us
sure you
support.
are
Look at
very
us
happy
supporting.
that that got pushed forward because I think that was you were the highest subjective for that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Looking at us supporting our independent creators out there. I approve.
They're the second highest independent animation company raised or money raised by community, I believe.
What's the first?
Vox Machina, the Critical Role.
Okay. It's a little bit more clout.
And it's got a pretty large lead on him. That one raised 11 million, right?
I
The
think
second
so.
close to that.
Yeah.
Vox Machina also had a huge following while Lackadaisy just
Like,
kind of
yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
So,
Lackadaisy has been a webcomic since late 2000s,
2007 or 8.
2007.
yeah,
Yeah.
but Critical Role
Right.
has been like in YouTube videos. They've been doing stuff at Comic
Yes,
Con.
Critical Role has
They're doing
been
a lot of
more diverse in content since 2012, I believe. But
Products
yeah,
are in stores.
Stores are in products. It's a whole thing.
Precisely.
so congratulations to the Lackadaisy team,
Yeah.
Iron Circus Comics, who are behind them or helping them, and all of that.
Now, do us a favor and make a really good season, so we don't have to roast you.
Well, they seem to have some good talent behind them.
Yeah.
The question is how long it will take. That'll be the big question.
Let's see. How many people do they have working on it? 20, 30?
I
We
think it was it was a couple hundred.
Yeah,
Couple
a good amount of people.
I don't.
on the subject of release dates. I finally found it is confirmed, Crimson, that we're getting Arcane season 2 next year.
Well, it's a long
I'm sure.
wait,
Yeah.
but at
I'm
least
sure
we'll
they
get
won't
it.
get.
Yeah,
And I'm sure it won't get pushed at all. It won't
Yeah.
be delayed
No.
or.
I would
They,
support it being
they
pushed and
polished it
delayed.
and make it pretty.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want them to take their time with it at this point. They got my trust. So make it good.
Anytime now that I watch anything independently made or produced on YouTube or something, all the comments are, please don't rush this. Just take all the time you need, which I feel like is a different viewpoint than years previously,
Yeah. I
which I
mean, look,
appreciate.
theoretically, if you have all the time in the world to make something, it should be better than It should be better, right?
Well, let's see. We don't want any more Gollum or Cyberpunk 2077 situations. Okay, just take your
I
time on it.
I also don't want any more Zack Snyder
Yeah.
Justice League stuff. The nightmare. All right.
Anyways,
Uh, well, we still got some more for the critics on critics if you guys want to hear more reviews because we just covered the Blade Runners.
are they funny?
Sure, let's do
Uh,
critics on critics.
All right.
sure.
Let's do critics on critics.
All right. Apple Dumpling rides again on Letterbox. DeVito NXRD is the guy's name with a 1.5 star, so 3 out of 10. They need to ride off a cliff and die. That's the review.
That's it?
That's the
Oh,
review. Okay.
Apple Dumpling
Um,
rides again. They need to ride off a cliff and die.
movie's
3 out
not
of
that
10.
great. Sure. I'll just shrug at that.
Wait, yeah, I think we gave it a 3 on our average.
I think it
total.
would have definitely been
Yeah.
a more saddened ending if Clarice, their donkey, just rode them off a cliff.
I like how it's the Khalees the donkey thing. And it's like, you know what? They can go off the cliff, but don't take the donkey with them.
I mean, I value the donkey more than them in that movie,
Oh, come
even though Clarice wasn't good either. The magic donkey.
They could track them.
Magic donkey.
All right. We got IMDb for the first Apple Dumpling Gang. 10 out of 10 by Maervo, I guess. Maervo.
Mhm.
The title of the review: absolutely hilarious. I have never laughed so hard at a movie in my life. I'm very disappointed in the rating this comedy has gotten. This film was one of those. Oh, never mind. This was for Rights Again. Sorry. Uh,
Oh,
Oh, this is 10
I'm
out of 10
very
for Reds again.
disappointed. Yes, I'm very disappointed in the ratings that this comedy has gotten. This film was one of those rare sequels that surpassed the original. A definite must-see for all Tim Conway fans. Where's your horn, little boy blue? In parentheses, he's quoting something else, I guess. Granted, there are some smarmy moments, but Tim and Don shine in this comedy for the whole family.
I think the only thing I agree with that is that Tim and Don shine.
Yeah, that's
Out of
pretty
the
much the
whole
only part
film,
I
they
picked out
do.
of it.
Yeah.
They are the best part of the film.
A 10 out of 10 is an extreme for the film. I think if you do enjoy the film, you could probably say, an 8 or 9, but being 10 out of 10, like the rarity, it's a little too high.
This film was one of those rare sequels that surpassed the original.
No.
I mean, it would have if it was if they'd taken into if they'd written the story around the characters and not for the characters.
I guess I really enjoyed the love story of the spy general captain and the kidnapped lady more than Donovan and Rusty. So
I forgot about that. Oh.
Now here's one for the actual first one.
Okay.
This is on Letterbox by Mike. 1 star, so 2 out of 10. Most westerns aren't great on the best of days. This is far from the best of days. I understand why Disney was not doing so well in the 70s now.
okay, they did some good stuff in the 70s.
Name
Not according to Mike.
name 10. Name 10.
10? I
That's
don't know if I can
That's a
name
lot.
10.
Guy doesn't
Well,
like westerns. It is an
yeah.
acquired
No, that's
taste.
fine. Yeah.
Westerns is an acquired taste. I like that he spent more time insulting Disney than talking about the actual film, but it's also fine.
Could just be someone who's against Disney. That's also something.
I don't know how
They're a
applicable the
growing breed.
70s thing is. I haven't seen too many 70s Disney
Oh,
things. I would imagine.
I mean that probably speaks in volumes of itself, doesn't it? That you don't really watch a lot of
That's
70s
true.
Disney stuff.
No. I figure it also focused on live action. Because I'm sure the tone of an
Oh, he didn't
animation
specify.
would be, yeah.
It's
I
Disney
mean,
in the 70s.
I don't really think Disney did live action very well for a lot of the time.
Another one, Letterbox.
Well, did you want me to give some
Uh,
examples of 70s Disney movies?
Oh, could you come
Sure.
up with some?
I did.
Can you get
Uh,
5?
do you want live action or do you want either or?
This guy didn't specify. So
Oh,
whatever
okay,
you
either
have.
or. There was the Aristocats.
Ooh,
Didn't realize
strike
it was
one.
that old.
There was the Rescuers.
So
There
far, two
was
movies I haven't seen.
Robin Hood.
Strike two.
That's three movies.
There was Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Okay.
There was the Muppet movie.
Strike three.
The original Freaky Friday.
Eh.
Looking at this list, probably my favorite Disney movie from the 70s. The original Pete's Dragon.
Never saw it.
Strike four, but he's already out. So
Original Escape Witch Mountain. Escape to Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a
let's
list.
see.
yeah.
Yeah, Herbie movies. Gus. $1 Million Duck. The Small One. The Strongest Man in the World. Castaway Cowboy. The Cat from Outer Space.
Are these all?
Now we're getting into the movies that fall within the
Yeah.
Apple Company thing. I
Yeah.
was focusing more on the movies that did really well.
Also, this doesn't count, but it has listed here also Star Wars: A New Hope, but that was not Disney at the time.
No,
So
That's not Disney,
that's not
unfortunately, so I can't count that.
I don't think it's
Unfortunately, I'd say that's
unfortunate.
fortunate.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah,
that-
that's true. Fortunately, yeah.
Fortunately, it's not Disney.
Also for Apple Dumpling Gang, 5 stars, 10 out of 10. Yedison. Very funny. I wish movies were still like this. This movie is the peak of Disney. Since it was a 70s Disney movie, it's pretty racist, but still go and watch it.
Did he say 5
Yeah.
out of 10?
10 out of 10.
No,
Oh.
5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Perfect movie. It's pretty racist. The only
Where?
racist thing I could think of was like the Chinese chimes or whatever, the gong sounds when the Chinese people showed up.
or when they're doing the laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That
the
was
only
funny.
racist thing I could think of, and that's
And
surface
here's,
level.
I think I said it in the video. The one thing I'll give them is they actually got actual Asian people to at least be in it. It wasn't yellow facing,
Yeah, it wasn't.
so it was a
Was it Mickey
slightly less
Rooney
racist.
from Breakfast at
Yes.
Tiffany's? Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know what else they could say is pretty racist.
Even
That's it. That's it.
so, their
I'm
comment
not saying
is
I will.
pretty racist, right?
Yeah.
And they're going with a 10 out of 10.
Yes.
One could see into that. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
that
their
is true.
thing.
Yeah, they're
I,
into
I,
the
I
racist
also
stuff.
can totally make this argument, but I don't think you can make a better argument for it being sexist than racist.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the
It's
whole
at the very least
the confusion of
stereotypical.
Rusty that Donovan has, and yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Going down a similar thread, another letterbox, but for National Treasure 1 by Sarah Ray, half star, so 1 out of 10. I somehow never saw this when it came out, and wow, is it sexist?
Okay, name 5 things that are sexist about it, and we'll,
I was gonna say,
I
Ryder,
complimented
you didn't see it when it came out, so
I complimented Abigail as a good female character, and this was
Listen,
saying it's sexist.
the reason that they're saying that is just because he tells her to shut up. That's pretty much the only reason they're calling it sexist.
Crimson, you could see it the other way. Abigail's the only good character.
yeah, there should
Why
be
would that be
multiple
sexist?
good characters.
like the men were underrepresented.
There you go.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Could be the other way.
Yeah, you're right. I was assuming Sarah Ray could be batting for men. You're right. I didn't take that into account. But yeah, 1 out of 10. Tough.
That is pretty tough.
Yeah. Another 1 out of 10 National Treasure by Meg Hopi, also Letterbox. Didn't watch it or anything, but I'm sitting alone eating lunch instead of. Never mind, I wasn't going to share this one. There's some bad stuff in there.
Oh,
Scratch that.
oh,
All
oh!
right.
There's some- that one I'll save for private after we're done.
Okay.
All right.
Now people are going to be curious what it is. We can't
Write in
bleep
the
it.
comments if you thought that
Well,
comment.
yeah, we
You
can
can't
just cut that
yeah,
out.
you can't just exclude words.
Well, no, it's more of what's being conveyed, not
Oh.
specific cursing or anything.
Yeah.
We'll go to Book of Secrets. Also, Letterbox. Man, I went all over the place. I got a lot of Letterbox. Okay.
Did anybody
2 out
else
of
get all
10,
those
1
beeps?
star. Had to watch this on my summer cinema. I'm saying it correctly. They wrote it in my
cinema.
town instead of Indiana Jones 4. In parentheses, even though they announced that they would put Indiana Jones 4. End of parentheses. Both were pieces of shit, so no problem. You
To be
compared
honest
Book
with
of
you, this is
Secrets to Indiana Jones 4.
Book of
yeah.
Oh,
Secrets to Dial. They didn't come out the same year. Dial of
I knew
Destiny
you were
just
gonna,
came out this
I
year.
knew, I was mouthing it while he said it. I was mouthing it.
Look, I do. Okay, jokes aside, this is much better than Crystal Skull, and Crystal Skull is better than Dial of Destiny. Ah, but
I haven't watched
so
Dial of Destiny yet.
Same.
but I do think that that's fine. That's a fine statement to make. Mostly, but he said they're both shit. This is better though.
Yeah. And I guess the last one, since we haven't talked about it, the show. This is
Oh, Edge of
on
History.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, good
Yeah,
grief!
Edge
Rotten
of History.
Tomatoes, the peak of internet
Yes.
critique. Yeah.
Jedediah C with 5 out of 5 stars. Perfect score, 10 out of 10.
Oh boy.
Great show, especially for anyone who loves to solve puzzles and follow clues and unravel mysteries. Storyline is simple and able to follow along without getting lost. Character arcs are a bit lacking, but could see improvement with it if the series was to go on for a season 2. Overall, really, really good show. Check it out.
Now, see though, he didn't mention anything about the previous movies,
And
so
he
he's
gave it a 5 out of 5.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
do like that he said it could be improved.
How
It's
can it
true.
be
that's
improved if
True.
it's a perfect score?
It
yeah.
could be improved. Yes.
Listen, the second season could have been like a 6 out of 6. You know, you never know.
No, it's like this guy saw a different show than what we saw.
Well, no, he said the characters were lacking. It's true. They
Yeah,
were.
Yeah.
But
he's right about that.
The character arcs,
the,
specifically.
the character arcs were lacking. This is true.
Same thing.
From what I understand it, I love all the things that he listed. I don't like the show that much. So
Yeah,
He,
he listed a couple negatives, minor negatives, and gave it a perfect score.
it's interesting because I feel like he worded like obviously he worded a lot of stuff correctly, and I think he does have he was critically thinking about it. Did gave some negatives. It wasn't just oh
It
my
wasn't just a
god,
clapping seal.
yeah,
This was
this is a
amazing.
yeah. I would have loved to have him on the podcast.
But that would be interesting.
Because I can't see through those lenses. I don't understand. I can't see this as a 10 out of 10 movie or show. Sorry, I can't see this as a 10 out of 10 show. So it would be great to have that.
Get Jedediah on here.
Get Jedediah.
they do have some good critical chops though, at least because they can sense that something's wrong.
Yeah, they're like, I think something's off here, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Nah, it doesn't matter. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I didn't say the whole
So
thing was
then,
good.
Critics on critics.
Awesome.
Unless someone else has one they've gathered.
No, I did not pull up any.
Most of mine were flagrant violations of kid taste. So, prefer to keep those to myself.
I guess any other questions before we get into how the season went?
How did the season went?
It's a closing question, but if anyone's got something before that.
Well, I mean, I didn't learn, but you guys learned what a meat cute is. Never heard of it before.
Yeah.
It's a stupid name.
I'll
stand by
I
that.
didn't come up with a name.
We didn't say you
I
came
didn't
up with
claim
a
you
name.
did.
We weren't accusing you. All right. We know you
getting
didn't come up
ahead of
with
the
a
curve on that one. No,
No, well, I guess we accused you of making it up at the point, but once
yeah.
we
Yes.
researched. But at this point, we are not saying you coined the term, but it's still a bad name.
I'm curious what you'll learn next season, because the season before this, you learned what dishing up is. Stranger Things. It was both Crimson and Ryder didn't know what dished up is. And now it was
then
meet cute
next
here.
season, I'll bring up a word you've never heard of, and then make fun.
Oh,
of
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm something I haven't heard of.
Boy, this is going to hell in a handbasket.
All right.
I was just
I-
it was just something. We just learned what a meet cute was. I thought that was something that stood out.
No, I was
that happened
making
this
a.
season.
I was doing a thing, doing a bit. I seen if
Hell,
anybody was gonna question Hell in a Handbasket.
Was that a
I
reference
thought
to
that was just a
something?
saying.
It is, but it's so's dished up. So's a
Oh,
meat
okay, I
cute.
see what you done. Okay. Spitting a phrase out.
That don't make no never mind to me. Alright.
I guess it should be fairly quick, so we'll just do it quick, even though we're running long. Favorite character. Because we got sequels, there's not as many characters as a normal season would be, probably. Not too many new ones introduced.
Bar none, my favorite character was the city in Blade Runner.
That's
Done.
My,
fair.
my favorite character in Batman is Gotham.
Yeah. Overall, it's probably between K and I'm sorry, Joe, K, whatever. Or Ben are probably gonna be my jostling for my top two here.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to say Ben as well. Abigail would probably be second, or Ian. National Treasure people.
The National Treasure people would like to thank
From
Crimson
the
for being
movies.
such a good
Gotta
sport.
specify now.
Yeah.
Specify from the
Yeah.
movie.
Man, I
I
didn't know
thought
you
Ginger
loved Jess. I couldn't tell, Crimson.
I thought you
Natasha's my
loved
favorite.
He's good. He's a big Mina fan.
meat. He's a Mina head for sure.
I am a Mina head, yeah. So Sprinks. I've seen the posters.
No, she was not needed.
That's what
I'm.
she was the best character.
I'll go a little different. I don't want to be a broken record. I'm gonna say Theodore, Don Knotts.
You stating it would be a broken record. Would your guess or your pick be Ben or not?
No, I do. I do like Kay or Joe.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, that was the one.
Yeah.
Is Theodore your true top, or is that your back?
No, Joe would
I think
probably
he's
be
more
my
of a
true
bottom.
top out of all of them, but
Okay.
Theodore I think is number 2.
Yeah, true top, true bottom. Theodore.
It's a little biased, but and nostalgic. But I'm just a big Don Knotts guy. So
That'd be me with my
Range?
National Treasures. Probably.
Sinister. I don't know what you picked the
I
city.
mean, I wasn't joking. The city is yeah. That was I think legitimately it's a character in both movies. Well, more so in the first one, but that's my honest opinion. If I had to pick an actual character, it'd probably be Kay.
Wonderful. Anything else for the big question?
no, give us the big question.
Yeah, give
All
us the big
right.
question.
How'd this
Flip it
season
on.
go as a whole? The sequel season.
Well, we had some stinkers, we had some winners, and overall, I think we all became better people. And isn't that just the way it is?
What
grew
kind
as
of
people.
Disney '70s film ending are you giving us? I think the season went fine. I'm still a little disappointed, but it's just the way it, scheduling goes and everything. That writer didn't have a pick because of his vacation situation.
Do you want to
Yeah.
say? Do you want to say what the
Yeah.
picks were, or do we want to leave that for future season?
Actually, I figure I'll leave that up to writer. I think we can say what they were. Like we didn't
Yeah,
cover
I'm
them.
down to say what they were. I originally picked the Incredibles movies from Pixar because the first one is amazing and the second one infamously is not. But yeah, scheduling conflict. I'm not recording from my house right now as a sign of that, and that's why I missed the last two recordings for National Treasure. And I had school prep and a bunch of other things going on in my life.
You had life. You had
I had
life.
life problems. So, but yeah. Other than that, though, I did enjoy what I got to be a part of, though, and
Mhm.
Yeah, things happen that way. It's fine.
yeah,
Not saying can always cover Incredibles later.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we're gonna cover Incredibles later at some point.
Big
Sequel,
movie.
iffy, but first one definitely.
Uh, I will say for me, taking into account Incredibles, uh, it's interesting that pretty much the sequels were less received than the first. Outlier being Blade Runner. Everything else we would have rated
Woo!
higher than the originals. And I'm giving that as a certainty based off of our Pixar tier list. So we do know we all prefer the first one. Except Sinister. I guess we didn't know
Yes.
Sinister's points on it. But
Actually, this kind of even
I
goes back to my Aren't All That Glitters, like middle ground stuff. Because my examples for what would be, 5 out of 10s is a worse sequel.
sure, he did bring that
it
up as an
it
example.
is. I feel like a lot of times though, especially I got to think with sequels. Usually, if the sequel's really good, it gets a third one. So that's why we have very few choices of just a sequel and not a trilogy or you know what have you. There's some rare examples. I'm not going to list them off here right now, but there's I think there's only a few where the sequel is better and they don't do a third one.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So
Yeah,
I
far
haven't
with
looked at
Blade Runner.
sequel
But
lists.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they only got a show, but we're not counting the show because it's on a movie. But yeah, so that's why I think it's very hard to usually have it be a better sequel and then not be a third
or wherever National Treasure 3 is on someone's page.
one. And it's out there. Yeah, we talked about it. I think in the end of the show that Nicolas Cage technically has a script, has been reading a script at some point, but resources went to the show, so Disney made the right call as they always do, in putting resources everywhere.
Say with the season, even though National Treasure: Edge of History kept us down, I'm going to keep my spirits high for the next season.
Hmm.
Indeed.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, we gotta keep the spirits high. But
All right.
but I'll close it out with this. Can I?
Yeah,
My
sure.
We lived, we laughed, we cried, and lessons were learned.
All right. And with that, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Sure.
All right. Thank you for listening, whether it be on Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you're on our YouTube side of things, we greatly appreciate you, and you can watch our PNG tubers. And feel free to like, comment, and subscribe anywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
A character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Keep those
Good
spirits high.